At 5:10 in the morning, the first headlight swung across the broken windows of the Crossing Cafe. Rowan Hale sat up on the cot behind the counter, one hand clutching a tire iron. Nobody knew she was sleeping there. As far as Bellwether was concerned, the cafe had been abandoned for 18 months, the Ferry for 9 years, and Rowan by her family sometime around sunset. A pickup stopped beside the weeds growing through the old loading lane. Then came a dented sedan, a bakery van, and a truck with a Veterans Home sticker on its bumper. 6 adults climbed out carrying travel mugs, lunch coolers, and the unquestioned confidence of people arriving somewhere they belonged. An older man in coveralls tried the locked door. Rowan stood barefoot behind the glass, still wearing yesterday's black funeral dress. The man noticed the tire iron, considered it, and knocked again. "You June's granddaughter?" She unlocked the door, but kept the chain hooked. "Who's asking?" "Cal Dorsey." He nodded toward the dark room behind her. "You opening, or are we mourning again?" Yesterday they had buried her grandmother. Last night Rowan's father had told her she was no longer welcome in his house. Yet somehow, before daylight, 6 strangers had come to the dead cafe expecting her. 14 hours earlier, Rowan had been sitting at June's dining table while her family divided what remained of June's life. The funeral casseroles occupied every flat surface in the cottage. There were 3 pans of baked ziti, 2 hams, something under foil that appeared to contain raisins and mayonnaise, and a lemon cake no one had cut because June hated lemon cake. She'd come back just to complain about that, Rowan said. Her sister Paige glanced toward the cake. "It's from Mrs. Temple's. That explains it." "What does that mean?" "Nothing. June just said Mrs. Temple's used lemon extract like she owns stock in it." For half a second, Paige's mouth twitched. Then Travis came in carrying a cardboard file box, and the almost laugh disappeared. Their father followed him. Dean Hale had removed his funeral jacket, but not his tie. The knot hung loose beneath his collar, making him look like a man who had been interrupted on his way out of a burning building. He did not look at Rowan when he sat down. Travis set the box on the table. "Can we do this without turning it into an all-night thing?" "You have someplace else to bury Grandma?" Rowan asked. He closed his eyes. "See? That. We don't need that." Travis was 35 and broad through the shoulders, with sunburned forearms and the pale stripe where he removed his wedding ring for marine work. He had spent the funeral shaking hands as though June's death were a difficult but successful business transaction. Rowan had watched him accept condolences from people whose names he did not know. Paige gathered paper plates and moved them aside. At 32, she could make clearing a table look like a correction of other people's poor judgment. She sold waterfront homes and wore cream-colored clothes without ever spilling coffee on them. Today there was mud on one heel from the cemetery. "This isn't the official transfer," Paige said. "It's just deciding who wants what, so everything can move forward." "Forward," Rowan repeated. Dean finally looked at her. "Your grandmother didn't want you 3 fighting. She also didn't want to be put in Harbor View." The room changed. Travis leaned both hands on the file box. Paige stared down at the plates. Dean's face became very still. June had lasted 11 days at Harbor View before Rowan brought her home. Dean called it an impulsive decision. Travis called it unsafe. Paige said they needed to trust professionals. All 3 had eventually accepted the arrangement because Rowan was the one sleeping on a chair beside June's bed. "That has nothing to do with this," Dean said. "It has everything to do with why I'm tired. We're all tired." Rowan looked at his clean fingernails. She hated herself for doing it. Dean had loved his mother. He had repaired her porch steps, handled her insurance calls, and brought groceries every Sunday until the final months, when June began forgetting that he had visited and accusing him of staying away. He had not known how to keep loving her while being erased in real time. But Rowan had known even less, and she had stayed. Travis opened the box. "The boat sheds are straightforward. I've already got equipment in both, and separating them from the yard would be a mess." "Then take them," Paige said. He gave Rowan a cautious look, assuming nobody objects. The shed stood beside Travis's repair yard on the eastern side of June's waterfront acreage. They produced rent from winter storage and gave him indoor space for engine work. Even Rowan understood they were the strongest part of the estate. "I don't object," she said. Travis relaxed by 1 degree. "Okay, good." "The cottage makes sense for Paige," Dean said. "She can live here or sell it. Either way, she knows the market." Paige touched the edge of June's blue tablecloth. I'm not selling it right away. Nobody had asked, but Rowan nodded. That left the ferry landing. Dean pulled a folded survey from the box and spread it over the table. Rowan recognized the shape before he flattened the creases. A long, narrow parcel reaching into the bay, with the abandoned ticket booth, the cracked vehicle lanes, and the squat rectangle marked Crossing Cafe. The best move is to list this section with the old landing, Page said. The structure has no real value. A buyer would probably remove it. Remove the cafe? Rowan asked. The building, yes. It has a name. So does the shed behind Travis's shop. Not one painted across the roof. Travis rubbed his forehead. The roof is half gone, Rowan. It is not half gone. There's a political sign covering a hole. That is called community-supported roofing. Paige laughed before she could stop herself. It came out short and startled, like a hiccup. Even Dean's mouth shifted, but then he looked at Rowan and the amusement vanished. You haven't been inside that place in years, he said. I was there with June last spring. You drove her past it. She wanted to see the water. She wanted a lot of things that weren't good for her. Rowan heard the second meaning. She sat back, the dining chair complaining beneath her. Dean pointed toward the survey. We sell the landing. After costs, your share gives you enough to get settled. Pay what you owe. Replace that car. Maybe go back to Baltimore. What if I don't want to go back? Then go somewhere else. The words were plain, almost gentle. That made them worse. For 11 months, Rowan had slept in June's sewing room beneath a ceiling fan that clicked every 7th turn. She had lifted June from the bathroom floor at 2 a.m, learned to cook eggs without letting the edges brown, and developed the habit of waking whenever the house went quiet. 3 weeks before June died, Rowan's banquet manager had stopped promising her old position would remain available. Now the cottage belonged to Paige. The income belonged to Travis. Rowan was being offered enough cash to leave neatly. She looked at the survey. I'll take the landing. Nobody answered. The cafe and the landing, she clarified. That can be my part. Travis stared at her. Be serious. I am. Paige pulled the survey closer. It's not equivalent. You just said the structure has no value. The land has potential, but there are carrying costs. Insurance, taxes, repairs. The dock needs work. The kitchen probably isn't usable. Then you shouldn't mind me taking it. This is exactly what Grandma didn't want, Travis said. Rowan turned to him. She told you that? She didn't have to. Convenient. Dean folded his arms. Why? It was the first honest question anyone had asked her. Rowan could have said, because June taught her to flip pancakes on the crossing's griddle, standing on an upside-down milk crate. She could have said, because her mother's handwriting was still on the wall beside the pantry, marking how many scoops of coffee went into the big steel urn. She could have said the cafe was the only place where Claire existed, as more than the sick woman in the hospital bed, or the photograph Dean kept face down in his desk drawer. Instead, she said, because nobody else wants it. Dean's chair scraped backward. That's not why. It's enough of a reason. No, it isn't. You think choosing that wreck proves something. Maybe it proves I can choose. You've done nothing but choose for a year. You chose to quit your job. I took leave, and then you never went back. Because June couldn't be alone. We could have found another arrangement. You did. Harbor View. She begged me to get her out, Paige whispered. Rowan. What? We're pretending that didn't happen because there's Ziti? Dean's palm struck the table, not hard enough to knock anything over, but hard enough to silence the room. I will not sit here and let you turn caring for your grandmother into a weapon. Rowan felt heat climb her neck. I didn't bring the weapon. I just carried it farther than everybody else. Travis looked away. Paige's fingers tightened around a paper plate until it bent. Dean stared at Rowan as if she had become someone across a great distance. Your mother loved that cafe too. It ate every morning, every weekend, every holiday she gave it. Your grandmother kept it limping along because she couldn't let anything go. Now you want to chain yourself to it because suffering is the only way you know how to feel necessary. The accuracy of part of it landed harder than the cruelty of the rest. Rowan stood. Then it should fit me perfectly. Don't do this out of spite. I'm not. Then sign your share for sale. No. Dean's face closed. If you take the crossing, you handle it alone. I assumed I would. No tools from my garage. No asking Travis to send his crew. No coming back in 3 weeks because the pipes burst and you finally understand what we were trying to tell you. Dean, Paige said, He did not stop. You're staying in my house right now. My name is on your phone account. Half your things are in my attic. You keep demanding to be treated like you stand on your own while making sure you never actually have to. Rowan's throat tightened. Are you throwing me out? I'm telling you that choices cost something, Travis muttered. Dad, come on. But he did not tell him to take it back. Rowan looked at Paige. Her sister's eyes filled, yet she said nothing. Paige had always cried quietly enough to avoid changing the outcome. Fine, Rowan said. She went upstairs and packed 2 duffel bags. Everything she owned had somehow become soft, shapeless, and embarrassing. Thrift store sweaters, nursing supplies she had bought for June, 3 pairs of black work pants, unopened mail. In the sewing room, the ceiling fan clicked on its 7th turn. Dean waited beside her car while she loaded it. You don't have to leave tonight, he said. She shut the trunk. You should have mentioned that before the part where you threw me out. I did not throw you out. Right. You explained consequences. His jaw worked. That place is not your mother. I know. It won't give her back. I know that too. For 1 second, he looked less angry than frightened. Then Rowan opened the driver's door, and whatever he might have said stayed behind his teeth. The cafe key was small, brass, and stubborn in the swollen lock. Rowan shouldered the door until it opened on a breath of grease, salt, and old coffee. Moonlight showed overturned stools, curled menus, and June's dead geranium on the windowsill. She found the cot in the storage room, carried it behind the counter, and lay down in her funeral dress because changing clothes required a kind of hope she did not currently possess. Hours later, headlights crossed the windows. Now, Cal Dorsey stood outside with 5 strangers waiting for breakfast in a cafe with no electricity and no coffee. Rowan looked at their expectant faces. Then she unhooked the chain. Cold air came in first, carrying marsh water, diesel, and the sweet yeasty smell from Bay Alvarez's bakery van. Cal Dorsey entered behind it. He was tall without standing straight, his shoulders permanently rounded beneath blue coveralls. A white mustache hid his upper lip. When he took off his cap, his right hand trembled hard enough that the brim tapped against his chest. The woman behind him noticed Rowan watching. Gets better after coffee, she said. So does his personality, but not by much. Cal put his cap back on. Ruth Bell. Works all night helping people. Spends all morning insulting them. Ruth wore navy scrubs beneath an open raincoat. Her gray hair was cut close to her head, and a plastic identification badge hung from her collar. The photograph on it looked considerably friendlier than she did. Rowan stepped back as the others filed in. A married couple immediately claimed the 2 stools at the far end of the counter, although both stools were upside down. The husband carried them to the floor. His wife wiped their seats with tissues before sitting. Leon and Marcy Pruitt, the woman said. That's Leon. I'm Marcy. I could have done my own introduction, Leon said. You had the whole parking lot. Wyatt Shaw came in without introducing himself at all. He was somewhere in his early 30s, broad-backed, dark-haired, and wearing waterproof bib overalls over a wool shirt. He carried a metal lunch cooler with a dent deep enough to hold rainwater. Last came Bee, a compact woman with red glasses and flour on both sleeves. She shut the door behind her and surveyed the room. Well, she said, it smells exactly the same. It smells like a raccoon fried onions, Ruth said. That is exactly the same. They began writing stools as if Rowan had invited them. Cal lifted one chair, rejected it after a wobble, and traded it for another. Marcy found a paper napkin dispenser and shook it beside her ear. Leon leaned toward the pastry case, although the case was dark and contained only dust. Rowan placed the tire iron on the counter. Everyone stopped. I don't know what you think is happening, she said, but this place isn't open. Cal looked toward the faded open sign lying face down in the front window. We gathered that. There's no electricity. June's power got cut after they closed, Bee said. There might not be water. Marcy pointed to the sink. Try it. Rowan didn't appreciate being ordered around in a building she had owned for less than a day, but she turned the faucet. The pipes banged inside the wall. Brown water coughed into the basin, then ran cold and mostly clear. Leon nodded. That's water. Thank you, Leon, Marcy said. I'm contributing. I don't have coffee. This finally troubled them. Ruth opened a cabinet behind the counter. June kept instant for emergencies. This isn't an emergency. 6 faces turned toward Rowan's funeral dress. Ruth looked back into the cabinet. Debatable. The jar was behind a stack of foam cups that had gone yellow along the rims. Its label had peeled halfway off, but the granules inside remained dry. Rowan checked the date and found it had expired 2 years earlier. No, she said. Cal took the jar and squinted at it. Coffee doesn't know what year it is. I'm not serving expired coffee. You're not serving anything. Bea put her travel mug on the counter. Hot water, then. The old propane griddle occupied half the cooking line. Beside it sat 2 burners crusted with grease. Cal crouched, opened the lower panel, and sniffed. Rowan grabbed the tire iron again. He looked up. If you hit me while I'm checking for a gas leak, we'll both feel silly. You can tell that by smelling it. I maintained the Ferry engines for 34 years. That is not the same as a stove. No, the stove's less likely to sink. He turned the valve off, inspected the connections, then asked Wyatt for a small adjustable wrench. Wyatt produced one from his coat pocket without comment. Does everybody carry tools to breakfast? Rowan asked. Only when breakfast is here, Bea said. After tightening a connection, Cal opened the valve and lit one burner with a long match from a drawer. A blue flame rose with a soft pop. Rowan found a saucepan, washed it 3 times, filled it, and set it on the burner. No one tried to help. They watched as though she were performing a medical procedure with poor odds. She added 1 spoonful of instant coffee to each foam cup. June used 2, Marcy said. June wanted you dead. 2, please. Rowan added another spoonful. The result smelled like scorched cardboard and looked capable of stripping paint. She distributed the cups anyway. Cal wrapped both hands around his, and the tapping in his fingers eased until the foam stopped whispering against his nails. Ruth drank first. Her face tightened. Well? Rowan asked. I've had worse. Where? Army hospital outside Fayetteville. Leon sipped his. This might be the worse. Bea opened her purse and placed $1 beside the saucepan. One by one, the others did the same. Wyatt put down 2. I don't have change, Rowan said. He picked $1 back up. Problem solved, Ruth said. They drank without hurry. Outside, the dark water stretched past the remains of the ferry ramp, where 2 rusted steel arms pointed uselessly toward the opposite shore. The old route had once saved drivers nearly 40 miles. Then the state finished the bridge north of town, and the bellwether ferry became a thing people remembered only when giving directions. Rowan leaned against the register. How did you know I was here? Bea raised her hand slightly. I saw your car last night. I delivered to Linton's Market at 4:30. Called Cal. And you all just came? Cal called Ruth, Bea said. Ruth called Marcy. Marcy calls everybody. I maintain relationships, Marcy said. You maintain surveillance, Leon told her. Rowan looked at Wyatt. Who called you? He nodded toward Cal. That's not an answer. It's as much as you'll get before 6, Ruth said. Cal drank the last of his coffee. June used to put a thermos outside after she stopped opening. Not every day. Days she felt up to it. She never told me, Rowan said. Wasn't a big production. How long have you been meeting out there? Leon considered. Since they locked the doors. 18 months? We tried the gas station by the highway, Marcy said. Their coffee tastes like somebody described coffee to hot water. The gas station has heat. It has country music before dawn, Ruth said. Nobody needs that much banjo while their blood pressure's still waking up. So you've stood in this parking lot every morning? Weekdays, Bea said. I sleep until 6 on Sundays like a sinner. Rowan studied them. Their arrival had seemed almost ceremonial from behind the glass, as if June had sent witnesses. Up close, Leon had egg on one boot from some earlier meal. Bea kept checking her watch, and Ruth had already begun gathering the used cups because she apparently did not trust anybody else to find the trash. They were not an omen. They were tired adults who had developed a habit and refused to replace it. Cal tapped the counter. Your mother kept real coffee. The room quieted by an inch. Rowan turned toward the sink. I know. Claire made it strong enough to. I know how she made it. Cal nodded once. All right. The gentleness of his retreat irritated her more than a question would have. Wyatt stood, tucked his lunch cooler under one arm, and carried his cup to Ruth's growing pile. Tug leaves at 6:15. Bea checked her watch again. And I have people waiting for bread they intend to complain is too expensive. Marcy pulled on her gloves. Will you be here tomorrow? Rowan stared at her. I told you, I'm not open. You were here today. That was an accident. Most good restaurants start that way, Leon said. No, they don't, Bee told him. They began filing out. Ruth paused beside Rowan, her gaze settling briefly on the wrinkled black dress. You got other clothes? In my car. Food? There's enough casserole at my grandmother's house to stop a door. That food isn't here. I'm fine. Ruth looked as though she might argue, then seemed to decide Rowan had already been argued with enough. That instant coffee'll make you blind if you drink it on an empty stomach. After the door closed, Rowan counted the money. $7. She counted again because $7 felt less insulting if it required verification. Through the window, she watched them separate. Ruth drove away first. Bee's bakery van backed out with a squeal. Leon and Marcy sat in their truck, still arguing, their hands moving in matching rhythms. Wyatt walked toward the commercial docks rather than driving. Cal remained beside his pickup, looking up at the cafe roof. Rowan went outside. If you're trying to calculate how fast it'll collapse, she said, do it quietly. Cal pointed above the kitchen. The roofline sagged slightly where a red and blue campaign sign had been nailed beneath a sheet of black roofing material. That patch held through 2 hurricane seasons. Travis said the roof was half gone. Travis likes fractions when he wants something to sound official. You know my brother? Everybody knows your brother. He charges shop rates. Cal opened his truck door. What was my mother like here? Rowan asked. He stopped. She immediately wished she had not said it. Claire belonged to Rowan in a fixed collection of details. Red apron, chipped thumbnail, peppermint gum, laughter coming from the kitchen before Rowan entered. Other people's memories could rearrange her. Cal rested one hand on the doorframe until the tremor passed. Fast, he said. Funny when she wasn't tired, mean when she was. She gave away pie, then lied to June about where it went. That sounds like her. She burned bacon every Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Never figured it out. He climbed into the truck. Don't light that burner again until I replace the hose. I thought you tightened it. I tightened it enough to make bad coffee, not enough to start a business. I'm not starting a business. Cal shut the door and rolled down his window. Then the hose can wait. Rowan watched him leave. In daylight, the crossing looked worse. Paint hung from the siding in long curls. Salt had clouded the windows. One of the letters on the roof had faded so badly that crossing read more like sea awsing, as if the building itself had lost something essential and was refusing to discuss it. Inside, she opened cabinets. She found mouse droppings, paper straws soft with humidity, 6 cans of tomato soup, and an unopened restaurant-sized box of powdered pancake mix. The refrigerator exhaled mildew when she opened it. A grease pencil still hung beside the pantry door on a piece of string. 3 lines marked the wall above it in Claire's handwriting. Coffee, 12 scoops. Saturday, 14. If Cal complains, 16. Rowan laughed, one sharp sound in the empty kitchen. Then she pressed her knuckles to her mouth. A car door slammed outside. Paige entered carrying Rowan's duffel bags and a grocery sack. You left these at Dad's, she said. I packed them. You left them by the front door. Rowan had no memory of doing that. Paige set the groceries on the counter. Eggs, butter, a loaf of white bread, ground coffee, and a package of bacon emerged from the bag. I don't need a rescue basket. It's not. It has bacon, Paige. I didn't know what else to bring. You could have brought words. Those are lighter. Paige flinched, then looked around the cafe. You really slept here. There was a cot. There are probably rats. Only one of them has introduced himself. Rowan, come home. Whose? Paige opened her mouth. The question remained between them, plain and impossible. Paige's cottage was still June's cottage. Dean's house had conditions. Travis had not offered. Paige pushed the groceries toward her. At least eat. Rowan looked at the coffee, then at the $7 lined beside the saucepan. Did Dad send you? No. Does he know you're here? Paige's silence answered. Rowan picked up the bag and handed it back. Then take it. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not going to be your private good deed. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. Paige's eyes brightened, but this time Rowan did not rescue her from the discomfort. After a moment, Paige removed the coffee and bacon from the bag and set them back on the counter. I paid $9 for this bacon, she said. I'm not driving it around all afternoon. She took the rest and left. Rowan stood alone with $9 bacon, ground coffee, and $7 she had earned while barefoot in a funeral dress. She turned over one of the curled menus. On the blank back, she wrote with Claire's grease pencil, "Coffee, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, cash." Then she taped it inside the window. The tape peeled loose twice before Rowan found a section of glass without grease on it. She pressed the sign flat with both palms and stepped back. In daylight, her handwriting looked less like a business announcement than a demand made during a hostage situation. Coffee, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, cash. She added tomorrow, then realized she had no idea what day it was. Thursday, according to her phone. The battery showed 12% and a text from Dean. "Your line comes off the family plan Friday. I can give you the account number if you want to keep it. Not, are you safe? Not, I'm sorry, an account number." Rowan put the phone face down. Cleaning the counter took an hour. The first pass made mud. The second made gray mud. By the fourth, the laminate emerged in a color that might once have been ivory. She swept mouse droppings, dead flies, and enough sand to establish a private beach. Every time she dragged a chair, something else skittered beneath something larger. Behind the pantry door, she found 3 aprons on hooks. 2 were plain white. The third was faded red, with a dark burn mark near the pocket and Claire written inside the waistband. Rowan touched the name with one finger. The apron smelled like mildew and old cooking oil. She folded it before she could make it precious and placed it on the highest shelf. The restaurant supply store in Easton sold her a sleeve of paper cups, coffee filters she could not use without electricity, 2 dozen eggs, and a bottle of bleach. At Linton's Market, she bought a gallon of milk and the cheapest loaf of bread on the shelf, then put the bread back because B drove a bakery van and had said yesterday's bread existed. $31.68 remained in her checking account. The $7 on the cafe counter had to stay cash in case her car needed gas. Her car always needed something. It started on the 3rd try, coughing blue smoke at a woman loading groceries nearby. The woman waved it away with both hands. "Sorry," Rowan called through the window. "Tell the car." The crossing's parking lot was empty when she returned, except for Cal's pickup. He had the stove panel open and a length of black hose coiled on the floor. Rowan carried in the eggs. "Do you break into every business you repair?" "Door wasn't locked. I locked it. Didn't take. That seems like a problem. It's on the list." "What list?" He nodded toward the counter. Beside the $7 lay a yellow legal pad he had apparently found in a drawer. "Everything in men's room." "You inspected the men's room?" "I opened the door. And I closed it." Rowan set down the eggs. "How much is the hose?" "22. She stared at him. "Would have been 17 before people started calling everything vintage. I have $7 in cash. You have 31.68 in the bank." Rowan went still. "How do you know that?" Cal pointed at the receipt sticking out of the supply bag. Her balance was printed across the bottom. She pulled it free and crumpled it. "You could have looked away." "I did after 68 cents. I can't pay $22 today." "Then don't. I'm not taking it for free." "Good. Free makes people weird." He tightened a fitting. "You can owe me. I don't owe people. Everybody owes people. I mean money. So do most people." He lit the burner, tested it with soapy water, and watched for bubbles. None formed. 22, Rowan said, plus labor. She exhaled through her nose. "Coffee until it's paid," he added. "How much are you valuing the coffee?" "Depends if it still tastes like this morning." The back door opened, and Bee came through carrying 2 long paper bags. "Door wasn't locked," she said. "I am beginning to hate both of you." "Good. Hate wakes you up." Bee placed the bags on the counter. "Yesterday's sandwich rolls and a loaf of sourdough I cut wrong. $4. "For all of it?" "Yesterday it was 16. Tomorrow it's bird food." Rowan inspected a roll. It was firm, but not stale. 3. Bee stared at her over her red glasses. "You negotiate like a woman with $31. Everybody knows my balance now," Cal told me. Cal did not look up. 4, Bee said. "And if you want more tomorrow, call before I leave the bakery. My phone may not work tomorrow." Bee removed a business card from her pocket and wrote a second number beneath the first. "Landline at the bakery. It's answered from 2:30 on." 2:30 in the morning? Bread has no respect for sleep. Rowan paid $4 from the counter money. By evening, the dining room looked merely neglected instead of condemned. She had cleared 6 tables, scrubbed the sink, and discovered that one window opened if struck near the latch. The front door still failed to lock unless she lifted it while turning the key. Cal demonstrated 3 times. Rowan failed twice, then succeeded hard enough to pinch her thumb. She slept in black work pants and a sweater, with Claire's red apron folded on the shelf above her. At 4:20, rain began ticking against the roof. Rowan washed in cold water at the kitchen sink, tied her hair back, and tried the front burner. It lit. She fried 1 egg as a test. The white ran toward the low side of the pan, proving either the stove or the entire building leaned east. She ate it standing up. A blue enamel percolator sat in the bottom of a cabinet. She scrubbed it, filled it, and measured 12 scoops of Paige's coffee. Then she remembered Claire's handwriting and added 2 more. The smell reached the dining room before the first headlights did. Cal arrived at 4:54. Rowan unlocked the door. "You're early. You're open. 6 minutes from open." He looked behind her. "Coffee ready? It's percolating." Then time is a social construct. B came in carrying another bag of bread. Ruth followed, then Leon and Marcy, already disagreeing about whether rain made crab picking easier or merely colder. Wyatt entered last, water shining on the shoulders of his coat. Rowan pointed at him. "I still don't know your name?" "Wyatt." "Last name? Shaw. See? That wasn't fatal." Morning's young. They occupied the same places as before. This time the chairs were upright, the counter was clean, and coffee existed in a recognizable form. Rowan poured 6 cups. Cal drank, lowered his cup, and stared at it. "Well?" she asked. He looked toward the handwriting on the pantry wall. 14 scoops? 16. His mustache moved with a small smile. "Claire taught you something. My grandmother taught me not to listen to complaints." Ruth added milk. "How much?" $1. "For real coffee?" "Don't sound disappointed." Ruth placed $2 down, 1 for yesterday's medical event. The others paid. Wyatt ordered another before finishing his first. Marcy looked toward the pan on the stove. "Are those eggs?" "No, they resemble eggs. They're private eggs." Leon leaned over the counter. "How much to make them public?" Rowan should have said she was only serving coffee. Her food permit had expired with June's business. The refrigerator did not work, and she owned exactly 1 clean frying pan. Instead, she looked at the 23 eggs remaining in the carton. $3, she said. 2 eggs and toast. Bacon? 5. Leon slapped the counter once. "I'll take it." "So will I," Marcy said. "You always take what I take. I make better decisions faster." Within 3 minutes, all 6 had ordered breakfast. The burner held 1 pan. The griddle lit, but its left side smoked from old grease despite Rowan's scrubbing. She laid bacon on the right, cracked eggs with 1 hand, and discovered the toaster was as useless without electricity as the coffee filters. B showed her how June had toasted split rolls face down on the griddle. "I know how to toast bread," Rowan said. "You were holding it over the burner with tongs. That was a working theory." The cafe filled with bacon smoke. Rain dripped through the roof into a mixing bowl Cal positioned beneath the leak. Rowan broke 2 yolks, forgot Leon's toast, and served Ruth eggs so soft they moved when she breathed near them. Ruth examined her plate. "These need another minute. They're eggs. They've already had a lifetime. Back on the heat." Rowan took the plate, cooked the eggs harder, and returned them. "Thank you," Ruth said, without triumph. Wyatt ate at the corner of the counter, quick and quiet. When the front door stuck behind a gust of wet wind, he stood, lifted it by the knob, and shut it properly. "You know Cal's trick," Rowan said. "Door did that when I worked the ferry. You worked on it? Deckhand. Last 3 years." He sat again. There were questions Rowan wanted to ask, but B had discovered the sourdough slices were too wide for the pan, and Leon wanted to know whether a 3rd egg counted as an egg or an additional breakfast. At 5:38, 2 men in reflective jackets came in. They stopped inside the door, surprised to find light from oil lamps, smoke above the griddle, and 6 people eating. "You open?" one asked. Rowan looked at her handwritten sign. "Until 7. Wyatt said you had breakfast." Wyatt kept his attention on his plate. The men worked maintenance on the bridge approach. One ordered coffee and bacon toast. The other wanted 4 eggs, no bread, and asked if Rowan could wrap them to go. She found waxed paper in a drawer, rejected it after seeing the stains, and sacrificed one of her clean dish towels instead. "Bring it back," she said. The man looked at the towel. "You serious? I own 5. At 6:12, Ruth left for home, Bea for her route, and Wyatt for the tug. Leon and Marcy remained long enough to debate whether the coffee was better than June's. "It's stronger," Leon said. "That's not better," Marcy replied. "It's usually better. Paint thinner is stronger than lemonade." Cal stayed at the counter while Rowan counted the money. $64 lay in small bills beside the register. For a few seconds, the number loosened something in her chest. Then she counted what she had used. Half the bacon, 14 eggs, most of the milk, almost all Bea's bread, coffee, propane, the dish towel that might never return. $22 owed to Cal. "Not quite retirement money," he said. "I know how subtraction works." June didn't. Rowan looked up. Cal turned his empty cup between his hands. She charged too little, let tabs run too long, fed people who could pay because asking embarrassed her. "You make that sound bad." It was generous. He set the cup down. Generosity can still close a cafe. After he left, Rowan wrote every sale and expense on his yellow legal pad. The profit was smaller than the cash pile had promised, but it existed. She turned the menu over and added beneath coffee, eggs, toast, bacon if available. Before she could tape it up, Travis's truck pulled into the lot. He sat behind the wheel, staring at the smoke rising from the cafe vent. Then he got out. Travis came in without wiping his boots. His gaze moved from the lit griddle to the oil lamps, then to the money spread across the counter. He took in the legal pad, the dirty plates, and the bowl catching rainwater beneath the roof. "You're serving food. Very observant, with no power. The eggs haven't complained." He walked behind the counter, opened the refrigerator, and recoiled from the smell. Rowan shut it. "That isn't part of the tour. You can't keep food in there. I'm keeping it in coolers." "What coolers?" She pointed to the 2 plastic coolers beneath the prep table, both packed with ice. Travis crouched and looked inside. Raw bacon beside milk. "The bacon is sealed. You're going to make somebody sick." "I worked in hotel catering for 5 years. At a hotel with electricity." She began stacking plates. "Did you come to order, or did you just smell somebody making a decision without you?" His jaw tightened. "I saw smoke from the vent. I didn't know the stove was usable." Cal replaced the hose. "Cal Dorsey? You know another one?" Travis looked toward the parking lot, although Cal's truck was gone. He shouldn't be touching commercial gas equipment. He maintained engines on a ferry. That is not the same thing. I told him that. "Then why did you let him?" "Because he had a wrench in confidence." "You think this is funny?" "No. I think you keep asking questions after the thing has already happened." He looked around again. Morning light revealed every stain the oil lamps had hidden. Rowan could see the cafe through his eyes. The ceiling tiles sagging near the kitchen, cracked vinyl along the counter, duct tape wrapped around the handle of the ice scoop. Her $64 looked childish beside it all. Travis picked up the yellow pad. "Coffee, $1. Put that down." "Bacon and eggs, 5. "Travis." He set it down. "You're not charging enough." Cal already gave that speech. Because Cal's right. Enjoy the historic occasion. Travis rubbed rain from his forearm. The water's still connected through the yard's meter. "I didn't know that." "Neither did I, until my bookkeeper asked why usage went up yesterday. I made 6 cups of coffee and cleaned." "You cleaned a restaurant. Do you want 12 cents? I want you to understand that the cafe doesn't have its own active service. The trash pickup is on my shop account too." Rowan glanced at the tied garbage bags beside the back door. "I haven't put anything in your dumpster. Yet. You came over to warn me away from your trash? I came over because I spent yesterday hearing that you're sleeping in a condemned building, and now there's smoke coming out of it. Who told you I was sleeping here? Paige? Of course. You can't stay here. I do own it. That doesn't make it safe. Funny. Nobody worried about safe when I was lifting June by myself." The word struck, and she saw it. Travis's face hardened around them. "You want to do this every time I walk through the door?" he asked. "I didn't invite you through the door." "No, you just expect my water to come through the pipes." He took his keys from his pocket. "Set up your own service or contribute to the shop bill. By Monday. Today is Friday. That gives you a business day to call. Generous. If I wanted to be a jerk, I would have shut it off this morning." He left before she could decide whether that was concern or a threat. Rowan scraped the breakfast plates into a bucket. The sink took nearly a minute to run hot, but eventually steam rose. She used too much soap because anger made moderation difficult. At 9, she called the electric company from the parking lot, where her phone signal was strongest. Reconnection required an inspection because the building had been inactive more than a year. The deposit alone was $280. "Can I pay it in installments?" she asked. The woman on the phone said no, with practiced sympathy. Rowan called the water company next. A separate commercial connection existed, but the account had been closed when June stopped operating. Reopening it required a deposit, a service visit, and payment of an old balance. What old balance? I can't discuss the previous customer's account with you. The previous customer is dead. The woman's sympathy became more practiced. Rowan hung up and checked her phone plan options. The least expensive one cost more than she had earned after breakfast. She opened Friday because standing still was more expensive. B brought bread at $4.40 and accepted $5 without bargaining. Cal arrived with a replacement latch for the front door, added it to the yellow pad, and crossed out gas hose. "You haven't been paid," Rowan said. "I've had 2 coffees, at $1 each. Yesterday's was worth -3. Ruth came in wearing different scrubs and the same expression. "Eggs hard today. I wrote it on the wall. You wrote, 'Ruth, destroy them.' That's restaurant shorthand." The 2 bridge workers returned. The one who had taken Rowan's towel brought it washed, folded, and smelling strongly of floral detergent. He introduced himself as Curtis. His co-worker was Neil. Both wanted bacon rolls to go and asked if she could have 4 more ready for the crew on Monday. "You have a crew?" Rowan asked. 8 when everybody shows." She calculated eggs, bread, and bacon in her head. "Call ahead." "What number?" She looked at her phone, which Dean would disconnect by midnight. "Call B's Bakery." B, halfway through her coffee, lowered the cup. "You're giving out my number? You answer at 2:30. I answer for bread emergencies. This involves bread. $5 per message. Put it on my account." B smiled despite herself. By 6:20, Rowan had run out of bacon. Leon accepted an egg sandwich with the sorrow of a man enduring wartime rationing. Marcy told him he had eaten bacon at home before they left. "That was home bacon," he said. "This is restaurant bacon. It came from the same animal." "You don't know that." Paige arrived at 6:43 in a wool coat and ankle boots unsuited to the muddy lot. She paused inside the door when everyone looked at her. Rowan kept wiping the griddle. "Coffee?" "Yes, to stay or go." Paige glanced toward the tables. Only the booth farthest from the windows was empty. "To stay." Rowan poured a cup and set it on a saucer because Paige had always hated drinking from foam. Paige placed a 20 on the counter. "It's $1. I don't need change. I'm not charging you $19 for guilt. Can I tip?" "Not 1,800%. Rowan handed back $19. Paige accepted it, her cheeks coloring as if Rowan had scolded her in public. She carried her coffee to the back booth. The morning crew did not ask who she was. Bellwether had already supplied that information. Ruth gave Paige a brief nod. Cal kept talking to Leon about a boat motor. Marcy examined Paige's coat and then looked meaningfully at the wet floor. Paige tucked the coat around her knees. Rowan brought her an egg sandwich she had not ordered. "I only paid for coffee," Paige said. "Then don't eat it." Paige took 1 bite. Her eyes lifted. "What?" Rowan asked. "This tastes like Mom's. It's egg and bread." She put mustard on the butter. Rowan had done it because June had taught her that way. She had never known it came from Claire. Paige took another bite slower. "Dad didn't send me," she said. "We've covered that. He knows I came yesterday." "Did you tell him?" He saw the grocery receipt on the counter. Rowan looked toward the kitchen. "Is bacon how this family communicates now? It's going better than words." Low bar. Paige folded the paper around the sandwich. "He hasn't slept." Rowan laughed without humor. "Neither have I. I'm not saying you should apologize. You're saying it softly so it sounds different. I'm saying he's scared." "Of what?" "Coffee?" "Of you turning into Mom." The words landed between them. Rowan rested both hands on the table. "You mean dead?" Paige's face went pale. "That's not what I meant." "Then choose another sentence. I mean giving everything to a place until there's nothing left for you. You haven't been here long enough to know what I'm giving. I know you. You knew where I was for 11 months. Paige looked down at the sandwich. "I thought you wanted to do it, care for June. You were good at it. That doesn't mean I wanted to do it alone." The cafe had emptied enough that the rain could be heard against the windows. Paige's eyes shone, but she did not look away this time. I should have come more, she said. It was not enough to repair anything. It was also the first thing any of them had admitted. Rowan pulled a napkin from the dispenser and set it beside her. Paige gave a small, wet laugh. That's all I get? I'm working. You have no customers. Then I'm preparing emotionally for customers. Paige finished the sandwich. When she left, she put $5 beneath the saucer. Rowan found it 10 minutes later and considered running into the parking lot after her. She kept it. The mornings began forming a shape. Wyatt reached the cafe at 5:25 and left at 6:10. Ruth arrived from the veteran's home 7 minutes later, if the night had been quiet, 12 if it had not. Curtis called the bakery for Monday's order, and Bea complained about being Rowan's unpaid receptionist, while relaying every detail perfectly. Wyatt fixed the front door on Saturday without asking. He removed the hinge pins, set them on the counter in a straight line, and shaved the swollen edge with a block plane from his truck. I owe you, Rowan said. No, I don't accept free. He glanced toward Cal. He told me. Apparently my finances are a community newsletter. Breakfast then? How many? Till the door closes right. It closed on the first try. One breakfast, Rowan said. Must be my lucky day. On Monday, 12 people arrived before 6. Rowan moved between the griddle and counter, building egg sandwiches and Bea's rolls, calling names, and trying not to notice that only 4 eggs remained. Curtis asked for coffee while she was rinsing the percolator. She turned the faucet. The pipe knocked once. A thin stream of water appeared, shivered, and stopped. Rowan tried the other tap. Nothing. Through the kitchen window, she could see Travis standing beside the shared meter at the edge of his yard. He closed the metal cover, picked up his wrench, and walked away. Rowan turned off the burner and pushed through the back door. Travis. He kept walking toward his shop. Travis. He stopped beside a stack of shrink-wrapped boat stands. His yard occupied the higher ground east of the cafe, separated from the landing by a chain-link fence and a strip of oyster shell gravel. 3 men in work coveralls glanced over from an open service bay. Rowan crossed the gravel. Turn it back on. I told you Monday. It is Monday, yes. I thought you meant by the end of Monday. You didn't call me. I was busy. So was I. I have 12 people in there. Travis looked past her at the crowded windows. Then you should have handled it. I called the water company. And? There's a deposit. There's always a deposit. June's account has an old balance. That sounds like June. It isn't my balance. Then tell them. I did. They need paperwork? Then send the paperwork. I buried her 4 days ago. His expression shifted, but only briefly. And I gave you until Monday. Rowan heard the men in the service bay trying not to listen. You could have come inside. I did on Friday. You could have warned me this morning. What would that change? I would have filled containers, using my water. She stared at him. You're really going to stand there and count sinkfuls? I pay for the shop's water. My insurance covers this yard, not a restaurant operating through a line that isn't assigned to it. If somebody gets sick or a pipe breaks, this isn't about insurance. No, it's about you hearing a deadline and deciding it doesn't apply because you're angry. That struck close enough to make her cruel. You had no trouble missing deadlines when June needed help. Travis's face emptied. One of his workers turned on an impact wrench. The sudden mechanical rattle filled the yard. Travis waited until it stopped. The dumpster pickup ends today too. Of course it does. You chose your own property. You mean I chose wrong. I mean you chose independence and then got offended by the expenses. He bent to lift the meter cover again. For one hopeful second, Rowan thought he was reopening the valve. Instead, he removed a short metal handle and slipped it into his pocket, so she could not turn it herself. You want water through Friday? He asked. Pay half this month's shop bill. How much? $212. That's not my half. It's what my bookkeeper calculated for commercial use. I've been open 3 mornings. You've been cleaning all week. You own a marine yard. You wash engines. And I pay for it. He walked away. Rowan remained by the meter until the cold worked through her sweater. Travis's workers had stopped pretending not to watch. The oldest of them, a thin man named Dennis, whom Rowan remembered from holiday cookouts, lifted his chin in a small greeting. She could not tell whether it meant sympathy or simply hello. Inside, conversations had softened. Everyone knew what had happened. Rowan washed her hands with water from the gallon jug beneath the counter, then stood where all 12 could see her. Kitchens closed. Curtis still held his empty coffee cup. You got enough to fill this? I can't serve without running water. We don't care. I do. Neil gestured toward the griddle. Our sandwiches are already cooking. She looked. 6 rolls waited beside a line of eggs, their whites turning opaque. Those are done, she said. After that, nothing else. She finished the orders with bottled water, wrapped the sandwiches, and refused payment from anyone whose coffee she could not provide. Leon argued that he had already eaten 1 egg. Marcy told him to stop haggling over disaster. Ruth placed $10 on the counter. No, Rowan said. It's for breakfast. You had coffee and toast. That's $2. The remaining 8 is for the pleasure of watching you yell across a boatyard before sunrise. Rowan pushed the bill back. Ruth pushed it forward. Don't make me put it in your clothing, Ruth said. I do that professionally. Cal remained after the others left. So did Wyatt. Rowan carried the dirty plates to the sink and set them down harder than necessary. Cal looked at the dry faucet. He warned you. Thank you? Not saying I like how he did it. You're still saying he was right. He was right that you needed an arrangement. You want me to pay half his water bill? No. I want you to stop treating every practical question like it's a referendum on whether your family loves you. Rowan turned. You have known me for 4 days. I knew June for 41 years. I'm not June. That's what I'm hoping. Cal's hands had begun to shake. He pressed them flat against the counter, but the legal pad rustled beneath one palm. Rowan looked away first. Wyatt lifted the 2 coolers from beneath the prep table. What are you doing? Food needs to stay cold, I know. Where do you want it? Here, ice is half water. It's frozen. Travis hasn't figured out how to shut that off yet. Wyatt set the coolers down. Bea has a walk-in. I am not storing my food at Bea's bakery, she offered. When? Outside. She could have told me. You looked busy. I can solve this. Neither man answered. I said I can solve it. Wyatt picked up his lunch cooler, then solve it. He left through the front door, closing it gently behind him. Cal tore the used page from the legal pad and folded it into his pocket. What was that? Rowan asked. Your repair bill. Why are you taking it? Because you're closed. That doesn't erase what I owe. No, but waving it at you today would be tacky. He put on his cap. Don't open tomorrow without water. Wasn't planning to poison anybody. Good. Ruth hates paperwork. The building became enormous after he left. Rowan gathered the garbage bags from the kitchen and loaded them into her trunk. One leaked bacon grease onto the carpet. She lined the rest with old funeral programs she found in a duffel bag, June's smiling face disappearing beneath coffee grounds and eggshells. The county transfer station charged by vehicle size. Rowan paid $9 and watched a man in an orange vest throw the bags into a compactor. On the drive back, her phone stopped working, the screen still lit. Dean's last text remained there, along with a missed call from Paige, but every attempt to dial produced a message about service. Rowan pulled into a gas station and sat with both hands on the steering wheel. She had $21 in her wallet, less than $30 in the bank, no running water, no phone, no legal place to dispose of restaurant trash, and enough bacon grease soaking into her trunk to make the car attractive to wildlife. For several minutes, she considered driving to Dean's house. She could imagine the whole scene. He would open the door before she knocked, because he would be watching from the front window. He would say nothing about being right. That would be how she knew he thought he was. He would let her shower, feed her, and hand her a key. Then the crossing would become a story about something foolish Rowan had tried during the week after June died. She started the car. At the public library, she used a computer to submit the water paperwork. She uploaded June's death certificate from an email Paige had sent the family and the page showing Rowan's assignment of the landing property. The clerk at the desk helped her print the confirmation for 20 cents. Starting a restaurant? The woman asked. Ending a drought. The deposit was still due. Rowan transferred the last of her checking balance and used a nearly maxed credit card for the rest. The service appointment available was Wednesday afternoon. For trash, she found a small commercial hauler willing to provide 1 bin with weekly pickup. The rate made her stomach hurt. She scheduled it anyway. She returned to the crossing after dark and wrote closed, water on the menu card. At 5:03 the next morning, headlights crossed the windows. Rowan watched from the cot as the morning crew gathered in the lot. She had expected them to see the sign and leave. Bea opened the back of her van and took out 2 insulated dispensers. Ruth produced paper cups. Leon and Marcy brought folding chairs. Cal carried a thermos. Wyatt arrived on foot and leaned against the old ticket booth with his hands in his coat pockets. They poured their own coffee in the rain. Rowan stayed inside for nearly 10 minutes out of pure stubbornness. When she finally stepped onto the porch, Marcy handed her a cup. "We know," Rowan said. "The gas station coffee tastes like a description. This is B's." B pointed at the dispenser. "And it's not free. $2. You charged me $1 yesterday. I have electricity." Rowan laughed before she could prevent it. They made space for her beneath the narrow awning. Cal had brought a bag of biscuits. Ruth complained they were dry, then ate two. Wyatt held his cup out, where rain dripping from the roof could not reach it. Nobody discussed the water. Nobody offered to pay the deposit. They simply stood where they had been standing for 18 months before Rowan arrived. "You really did this every day," she said. "Colder then," Leon replied. "It was July," Marcy said. "I run cold." On Wednesday afternoon, the service truck arrived. The worker opened the cafe's separate connection, flushed the line, and waited until the water ran clear. Rowan signed his tablet with one finger. She spent the evening scrubbing everything that had sat dirty for 2 days. At 4:45 Thursday morning, she taped up a new menu. Coffee, $1.50. Egg and toast, $3.50. Bacon breakfast, $6. Extra egg, $1 no. Tabs, no arguments. Leon read it through the glass. "What if the argument is good?" he asked when she unlocked the door. $2. The bridge crew had called B's Bakery with an order for 8 sandwiches. Ruth wanted 3 coffees for coworkers at the end of their shift. B offered Rowan yesterday's rolls by the dozen instead of by the bag. Rowan wrote every order down and took payment before cooking. Wyatt watched her count his change. "You raised the prices? I learned subtraction. Coffee's still cheap. Don't ruin it." He placed an additional $1 on the counter. "Lunch." Rowan looked up. "I don't serve lunch. You close at 7. "Yes." "Tug comes back at noon. 6 people. We bring our own coffee. That's not the part I'm worried about." 6 sandwiches, he said. "Nothing fancy." Behind him, B was pretending not to listen and doing it badly. Rowan looked at the eggs, the rolls, and the list of morning orders. The cafe had water. It had no refrigerator, no reliable power, and one griddle that leaned toward the bay. What kind of sandwiches? Wyatt's mouth shifted, not quite a smile. "Whatever doesn't require a permit from God." "Eggs," Rowan said. "Bacon if I have enough. Maybe grilled cheese. Cheese requires permission?" "Refrigeration." Wyatt nodded toward the coolers. "Ice. Ice melts, usually. I'm beginning to understand why you don't talk much." He took another drink of coffee. 6 egg sandwiches, noon. I'm charging $7 each. You just charged me $3.50. That was breakfast. Lunch has ambition. He counted $42 onto the counter. Rowan stared at it. "You carry that much cash onto a tugboat?" Not anymore. At 10:30, she was still at the griddle. She had closed the front door at 7, washed the breakfast dishes, driven to Linton's for more eggs, and returned with enough time to burn the first 6 pieces of bacon. The cafe had already grown hot. Without working ventilation beyond the roof vent, cooking smoke hovered below the ceiling like weather. B came through the back door at 10:40, carrying a stack of shallow cardboard bakery boxes. "You look terrible," she said. "Thank you. You're welcome. Put the sandwiches in these. I was going to use paper bags. They'll sweat. They're sandwiches, B, not nervous politicians." B opened a box and lined it with waxed paper. "Where are they going?" "Bellwether Tug. I passed the dock on my return route. Wyatt said they'd come here. They'll waste half their break." "I don't need delivery." "No, you need 6 men with dock boots tracking through here at noon. Some of them could be women. Then you need 6 people with dock boots tracking through here. Equality makes the floor just as dirty." Rowan slid eggs onto the rolls. "How much? For delivery?" "Yes." B considered. 1 sandwich. That's $7. Lunch has ambition." Rowan gave her the least burned one. At 11:50, Wyatt came in alone. "They're already on the way," Rowan said. He looked at the empty counter. B took them. "To the Tug?" "Unless she's selling illicit egg sandwiches out of a bakery van." Wyatt sat on a stool. "Wouldn't put it past her." "I made yours separately." She placed a wrapped sandwich in front of him. "I paid for 6. This is from B. Delivery fee, then it's hers." She left before eating it. He unwrapped it. "You burn this one?" "Only enough to add complexity." He took a bite and looked toward the water. In the quiet after the morning rush, Rowan became conscious of everything about him at once. the rain-dried salt on his boots, a thin scar beside his left eyebrow, the deliberate way he chewed as if food deserved full attention. She turned to wipe a counter that was already clean. "What happened to the ferry crew?" she asked. "Some transferred north, some retired. You? Tug was hiring. You miss it?" He looked through the windows at the rusted loading arms. "Miss parts." "Which parts?" 5 in the morning before the first run. Engines warm, deck lights on. Whole boat felt awake before the town was. The cafe had felt that way before sunrise. Rowan understood without wanting to say so. "What don't you miss?" "People driving onto a ferry like we personally put the bay in their way." She laughed. His eyes shifted toward her, and for a moment he seemed surprised he had caused it. B returned at 12:10 with the empty boxes and a folded order slip. "Your Tug people want 6 tomorrow," she said. "Veterans Home wants 10 on Friday. No runny eggs." Ruth's handwriting covered the bottom half of the slip. "Destroy them." Rowan pinned it beside the pantry door. Lunch did not become a gold mine. It became another list. Bread had to be ordered before B's morning route. Eggs had to be stored on ice and moved whenever the coolers warmed. Bacon grease had to be carried to a collection drum behind a seafood restaurant 2 miles away, because Rowan's new trash company would not take it. The delivery boxes cost 38 cents each. Mustard cost more than seemed morally defensible. Still, orders multiplied. The veterans' home night shift wanted breakfast at the end of work. Bridge crews wanted wrapped sandwiches before driving north. Tug workers called for lunch, while Rowan still had the griddle hot. B added the cafe to the end of her route, carrying boxes in exchange for food and a delivery fee once Rowan could afford one. Rowan bought a prepaid phone at a pharmacy and wrote the number beneath the menu. The device was bright blue, too small for her hand, and rang with a sound like a cheerful submarine alarm. The first call came at 3 in the morning. "Crossing Cafe," Rowan answered. Silence. Then Leon said, "Is this where we order?" "You see me every morning." Marcy said calling ahead was more professional. "What do you want?" "The usual." "You don't have a usual. 2 eggs, bacon, toast. That's the only thing I serve. Then you know my usual." She hung up on him. At 5:31, he arrived delighted by the success of the system. Rowan began sleeping in 90-minute pieces. She closed at 7, prepared lunch orders, cleaned, shopped, collected ice, dealt with service calls, then tried to rest before starting again. The cot developed a dip that held her body like a question mark. Ruth found her asleep at the counter one morning, with her forehead resting beside the legal pad. "You can't live like this," she said. "I'm not living, I'm lightly haunting. Eat something, I eat. Tasting bacon doesn't count." Ruth made her sit while Wyatt cooked 2 eggs on the griddle. He had never used the cafe's griddle, but he moved around the line without hesitation. He knew which knob stuck and where June had kept the spatulas. Rowan watched from the nearest stool. "You worked back here?" When Claire was short. "My mother let a deckhand cook." "Your mother let anybody cook if it meant she could smoke by the freezer. She didn't smoke." Wyatt flipped an egg. She did here. Rowan looked toward the back door. Claire's fixed collection shifted again. Rowan could picture her mother outside, one hip against the siding, hiding a cigarette from June and probably from Dean. The image should have felt like a theft. Instead, it made Claire more solid. She hated cigarettes, Rowan said, mostly after she quit. When was that? Year before she got sick. Rowan did the math. Wyatt would have been in his early 20s, Claire 40-something. Their lives had overlapped in a room Rowan had considered entirely hers. He slid 2 eggs and toast onto a plate. "Eat." That sounded like Ruth. "She's contagious." Ruth watched until Rowan finished. The electric inspection happened the following afternoon. The electrician opened the panel, frowned for 7 uninterrupted minutes, and handed Rowan an estimate for $1,400. "For what?" she asked. "Replacing the damaged breakers, bringing the kitchen outlets up to code, repairing the line to the refrigeration circuit. Can you just make the lights work? I can make them work safely. Can you make them work unsafely for less?" He did not find that funny. Rowan folded the estimate and placed it beneath the register. The old refrigerator remained dark. She spent nearly $20 a day on ice, more when the weather warmed. Every trip to Linton's cost time and gas. Buying in small quantities protected her from spoilage, but erased the discounts that made restaurant pricing possible. Cal reviewed the estimate. He's not cheating you, he said. I was hoping for cheating. Cheating sounds negotiable. Panel's old, everything's old. He looked offended. Not everything. She pointed at his coffee. Drink your debt. He had reduced the repair balance to $9, although Rowan suspected he was counting cups generously. Wyatt's door repair was officially paid. B now kept a written total of bread and delivery fees on a flour-smudged card. The debts were small, visible, and constantly moving. Rowan preferred them to the silent kind her family maintained. Paige began coming twice a week. She always arrived after the first rush, sat in the back booth, and paid exact change. She stopped offering groceries. Instead, she brought her laptop and worked on property listings over coffee, occasionally looking up when Rowan cursed at the griddle. One morning, she asked, "Have you thought about social media?" "No, you should. I'm open at 5 in the morning for tug workers, Paige. They're not scrolling lifestyle content while tying off a barge. Other people might come. Other people sleep. You need enough customers to pay for electricity. I need enough money to pay for electricity. More customers also use more eggs, bread, ice, water, propane, soap, and boxes." Paige closed her laptop halfway. "You've done the math?" Rowan pointed to the yellow pad. Paige spent 10 minutes reading it. "Your labor isn't included. My labor doesn't send invoices. It still costs." That sounds like something a person with a house says. Paige absorbed the blow without retreating. "Your coffee should be $2. Cal will riot. Cal has paid off a gas hose by drinking it." From the counter, Cal raised his cup. $8.75 remaining. Paige looked at him. "You're part of the problem." Been told that. Rowan changed coffee to $2 the next morning. Cal complained for 12 minutes and then paid. The faded red apron came down from the shelf because Rowan's white ones had developed stains no amount of laundromat bleach could remove. She washed Claire's separately, sitting in a plastic chair as it turned behind round glass. When the dryer stopped, the apron was still faded, still burned near the pocket, but it smelled clean. She wore it on a Thursday. Nobody commented at first. Marcy's gaze caught on the name inside the waistband when Rowan bent to lift a box. Her expression softened, but she asked only for more toast. Cal saw the burn mark and looked toward the window. Wyatt paused when he entered, then removed his wet coat and ordered coffee. At 6:50, Dean's truck pulled into the lot. Rowan knew it before she saw the driver. The engine had a faint belt squeal he had been promising to fix for 2 years. He stayed behind the wheel while the last bridge workers left. Paige, in the back booth, noticed him too. She began packing her laptop. "Don't," Rowan said. "I have an appointment in 40 minutes. Paige's hands stopped. Dean came through the front door. He had not shaved. His work shirt was buttoned wrong at the collar, and rain spotted the shoulders of his canvas jacket. His eyes went first to Paige, then to Rowan. Then he saw the red apron. He gripped the back of the nearest chair. "Take that off," he said. Rowan's hand moved instinctively to the burn mark. "It's an apron. It was your mother's. I know whose name is in it. You have no right to wear it like a costume." The few people remaining became very interested in their plates. Cal started to stand. Rowan shook her head once. He stayed seated. Dean's face had gone gray beneath the stubble. He was not looking at Rowan anymore. He was looking at a morning that had happened years ago, in the same room, with another woman behind the counter. Rowan untied the apron. For 1 second, relief loosened his shoulders. Then she retied it more firmly. "Coffee is $2, she said. "Food's $6. If you're not ordering, you're blocking the door." Dean's fingers tightened around the chair. "You think talking to me like a customer makes you groan? No. Being charged for my own water did a lot for that." Paige stood. "Dad," he turned on her. "You knew she was wearing it? She put it on this morning. And you said nothing?" What was I supposed to say? That it wasn't hers. Rowan felt the apron's neck strap pressing against her skin. "Grandma left me the cafe and what was in it. That isn't what I mean. I know." "You mean it belongs to your version of Mom, and nobody else is allowed to touch that?" Dean flinched. Cal lowered his eyes to his coffee. Marcy gathered Leon's plate and hers, although neither was finished. Ruth remained in her seat with both hands around her cup. Dean's voice dropped. "Your mother burned that pocket the morning she got her diagnosis." The cafe went still. Rowan looked down at the dark crescent near her hip. She had always assumed it came from a hot pan or a careless cigarette. "She came in here after the appointment," Dean continued. "Wouldn't go home. Wouldn't call you or Paige or Travis. She tied that apron on and worked 6 hours because she thought if she kept doing ordinary things, the doctor might be wrong. Rowan's fingers found the burned cloth. "Did you know that?" he asked. "No." "So, don't stand there pretending you understand what you're wearing. Then tell me." "What?" "Tell me things instead of hiding them in your garage or getting angry when I find them." His gaze moved to the coffee station. "Where's the urn?" "What urn?" "The steel one. Your mother used it every morning." "It wasn't here." Something passed over his face, too quickly for Rowan to name. "You know where it is," she said. Dean ignored that. This place made sick look normal. Claire came in exhausted in pain, and everybody praised her for being strong. June praised her most of all. "I begged her to stop working. And did she? No. Then maybe Mom made a decision you didn't control. She died 8 months later." The sentence knocked the air out of the room. Rowan gripped the counter. Dean's anger broke around the edges, showing what it had been built to contain. "You're sleeping behind a counter, cooking without power, storing food in ice chests. You look exactly like she did when everybody kept telling her how brave she was. I'm not sick. You don't know when to stop. And you only know how to leave." Paige made a small sound. Dean turned away from Rowan. For a moment he stood facing the windows, the abandoned ferry ramp visible beyond his reflection. His shoulders rose and fell once. "I came to ask you to breakfast," he said. Rowan almost laughed. The griddle was warm behind her. Half the county appeared to be eating breakfast in front of him. "Where? Dolly's? Why would I leave a cafe to go to a diner, to talk somewhere that isn't full of ghosts?" "Those are your ghosts." He looked at her then. "They become yours." He walked out. The door closed correctly because Wyatt had fixed it. Nobody spoke until Dean's truck left the lot. Leon cleared his throat. Eggs were good. Marcy struck his arm with the back of her hand. "What?" he said. "They were." Ruth stood and carried her plate to the counter. "I need to sleep." "You didn't finish," Rowan said. "I lost my appetite. It'll come back by 5 tomorrow." She put exact change beside her cup. Cal followed, then Leon and Marcy. None of them offered comfort. Rowan was grateful until she wasn't. Wyatt remained at the corner stool. Paige came behind the counter and reached for a dish towel. "What are you doing?" Rowan asked. "Helping." "You have an appointment. I moved it." "When?" "While Dad was accusing me of apron negligence." She opened the sink and began rinsing cups. "You don't have to stay because that was awful." "I know." "You don't know where anything goes. Then I'll put everything in the wrong place and you can feel superior while moving it later." Rowan looked at her sister. "That does sound useful." 2 men from the veterans' home came through the door, asking for Ruth's breakfast order. Behind them, a delivery driver wanted coffee and 3 sandwiches. Rowan turned toward the griddle. Paige tied on one of the white aprons. "You look like you're selling a waterfront condo," Rowan said. "I sell waterfront homes, not in that apron." "Tell me what to do." Rowan pointed. "Cups, coffee. Write down every order because people lie when hungry." The next 20 minutes left no room for family history. Paige poured coffee too slowly and called Curtis curt. She gave a man $10 too much change, caught the mistake, and chased him into the parking lot. When she returned, rain had flattened one side of her hair against her cheek. "You have a complicated customer base," she said. He gave the money back. "He made me identify the year of the bill first. Neil collects old currency." "How would I know that?" "You're learning." Wyatt left for the tug without saying anything about Dean. Before going, he set a paper cup of water beside Rowan's elbow. She drank it only after he was gone. When the rush ended, Paige untied the apron and folded it badly. "Dad packed the steel urn after Mom died," she said. Rowan kept scraping the griddle. "I saw it in his garage last Christmas, on the shelf above the workbench, so he knew it wasn't here." "Yes." "Why did he ask?" "I think he forgot he took it." "No. He wanted to know if I knew." Paige wiped the counter. "Maybe." Rowan looked at Claire's apron. "Do you remember the day she burned this?" "No." "I remember her lying about the diagnosis for 3 weeks. To us? To everybody." She said the biopsy was fine. Paige folded the towel smaller. Dad found the appointment card in her coat. Rowan had not known that either. "Why didn't anybody tell me?" "You were 19. You were barely home. I was in college 40 minutes away. You stopped answering your phone because every call was somebody crying or pretending not to cry." "I know." "No, you don't." Paige met her eyes. I answered. There was no accusation in it, which made the truth worse. Rowan turned back to the griddle. At the door, Paige hesitated. I'm coming Friday. For coffee? To help during the rush. Dad won't like that? I'm 32. He asked if you had permission to let me wear an apron. He can survive disappointment. Apparently it builds character. She left before Rowan could smile. Cal arrived that afternoon with roofing cement, a pry bar, and a folding ladder in his truck. No, Rowan said. He set the ladder against the side of the cafe. Rain's coming Saturday. No. You want the ceiling in your eggs? I want you off that ladder. He looked at her. You've got an electrician coming next week. Water's on. Trash bin's here. Roof's next. Not with you on it. I patched this building before you were tall enough to see over the counter, and your hands didn't shake then. His expression changed. Rowan wished she had phrased it differently, but not enough to take it back. I know my limits, Cal said. Great. The roof is one. You watch me fix the stove. From the floor, I can climb a ladder. I'm sure you can climb it. I'm less sure you can come down. His right hand trembled around the pry bar. He transferred it to his left. You think because you serve me coffee, you get to tell me what I can do? No. I think because it's my roof and my ladder. My ladder. I get to tell you not to fall off it. He folded the ladder so sharply it snapped shut. Hire somebody then. I will. With what? The question landed exactly where he intended. Cal loaded the ladder into his truck, left the roofing cement on the gravel, then picked it up again. Cal. He shut the tailgate. Cal, I'm not saying you're useless. Wasn't worried you were. He drove away. He did not come the next morning. His empty stool bothered everyone. Marcy placed her purse on it, so no stranger would sit there. Ruth said he was sulking and deserved the exercise. Bea claimed men over 60 could turn concern into an insult faster than milk turned in Rowan's coolers. Rowan called Cal after closing. He did not answer. The second morning, he still did not come. She drove to the address Bea gave her, a narrow blue house near the marina with a small engine suspended from a chain in the side yard. Cal opened the door in slippers and a buttoned shirt, as if he had been expecting a bank representative. I brought coffee, Rowan said. Hope you charge yourself $2. She held out the cup. I was mean. You were right. That sounds painful. It'll pass. He took the coffee but did not invite her inside. Rowan looked at his hands. The right one shook against the cup, though he had wrapped the left around it too. I need you at the counter, she said. No, you need a roofer. I need both. One is currently affordable. His mustache lifted. You saying I'm cheap? I'm saying you paid off a gas repair by drinking $16 worth of coffee. Your math is bad. Paige says my labor has value, so I'm charging you for the conversation. Cal stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind him. I used to go up the tower in crosswinds, he said. Ferry signal would stick. Captain would send me. I believe you. Hands started after I retired. Doctor says it's not the bad kind. Rowan did not ask what the bad kind was. I can still fix things, he said. I know, but not the roof, not alone. He looked toward the bay visible between two houses. I hate people watching me decide not to do something. Rowan understood that too well to answer quickly. Then come tomorrow before everybody else, she said. You can decide in private. He returned at 4:47. The roofing estimate came to $600. Rowan placed it beneath the electrical estimate and put a mixing bowl under the leak. She saved for the electrical work first. Every $2 coffee, every $6 breakfast, every lunchbox Bea delivered moved a little into an envelope beneath the register. Paige worked Friday mornings and refused pay until Rowan threatened to fire her from a job she did not officially have. Rowan began giving her breakfast and $10. 5 weeks after the funeral, the electrician replaced the damaged breakers and repaired the kitchen circuit. He turned on the main switch. Lights flickered above the counter. The morning crew applauded, even Cal. The old refrigerator shuddered awake, coughed, and settled into a low hum. Rowan stood in front of it with both hands over her mouth. No more $20 bags of ice. No more buying eggs 12 at a time. She could order butter, cheese, and milk by the case. She could keep lunch ingredients overnight. She filled the shelves that afternoon. At 3 the next morning, Rowan woke to silence. The refrigerator had stopped humming. When she opened its door, warm air rolled over 2 cases of eggs, 4 pounds of bacon, cheese, milk, butter, and every dollar of food she had been able to buy in bulk. Rowan touched the milk carton. Not cold. She checked the outlet first, because an outlet could be blamed on the electrician, and blame was briefly comforting. The lamp plugged into the same circuit came on. The refrigerator had simply used electricity long enough to prove it could, then died in the night. She found the food thermometer in a drawer and pushed it between the egg cartons. 53 degrees. No, she whispered. She moved the bacon into coolers, dumped the remaining ice around it, and called the number on the refrigeration sticker. A recorded voice offered emergency service for an additional $200. At 4:46, Cal came through the door and found Rowan sitting on the floor in front of the open refrigerator. He took in the coolers, the thermometer, and the food stacked on the prep table. How long? I don't know. Was it cold when you went to bed? Yes. What time? 10. He looked at the clock. Don't do the math out loud. Cal crouched, listening as Rowan switched the refrigerator off and on. The compressor gave one tired click. Could be the relay, he said. Can you fix it? I fix engines. You also fix gas stoves, doors, and apparently my personality. I never touched the door. Can you fix it? He opened the lower panel and shone a flashlight inside. His hand shook against the metal edge. He withdrew it, not safely. She hated the answer and loved him a little for giving it. B arrived with bread, Cal explained before Rowan could. My walk-in has room, B said. Not for everything, but enough. The eggs have been over 40 degrees for hours. How many hours? I don't know. Ruth entered while Rowan and B were arguing about whether unopened butter could be saved. Throw out the eggs, Ruth said. They cost $46. They cost more if they make 12 people sick. The bacon was sealed. Temperature doesn't care about packaging. You work with people, not pork. I work with infection. Pork has fewer opinions. Rowan looked at 2 full cases of eggs. Yesterday they had represented progress. Bulk ordering, lower costs, a refrigerator that hummed while she slept. Now the cardboard felt warm beneath her hands. She carried the first case to the new trash bin. By the time the morning crew had gathered, half the refrigerator's contents were gone. Ruth made Rowan discard the milk. B saved the hard cheese, which had remained cooler near the back. Cal put the butter in his truck because the outside air was colder than the kitchen. Leon stared into the nearly empty refrigerator. No breakfast, no. Toast, no. Toast doesn't need refrigeration. Then go home and make toast. Marcy took his arm. She's having a morning. We all are. Mine doesn't have toast. Rowan slammed the refrigerator door. The dead seal bounced it open again. Coffee only, she said. She had enough clean water and grounds. She made coffee while everyone stayed out of her way. Curtis arrived for 8 Bridge Crew sandwiches. Rowan had forgotten to call and cancel because the order was written on paper beside a phone that did not contain Curtis's number. I can refund you, she said. We pay on pickup. Then I can disappoint you for free. He looked at the coolers. Everything bad? Yes. Neil's going to blame me. Tell Neil the refrigerator personally rejected him. Curtis bought 8 coffees instead and carried them out in 2 cardboard trays B supplied. When the last customer left, Rowan counted $31. She had thrown away more than 4 times that in food. The refrigeration technician arrived at 10 and charged $85 to confirm that the compressor had failed. Replacing it would cost $900 and might buy the refrigerator another year. Or another week, he added. I appreciate the optimism. It's 35 years old. So is my brother. And nobody suggested replacing his compressor. The technician looked uncertain. I don't work on people. Lucky? He left the service invoice. Rowan added it to the pile beneath the register. Electrical estimate paid, roofing estimate unpaid, refrigeration repair impossible. The envelope where she had saved $1,400 was empty except for a receipt. Paige arrived with lunch and found Rowan attacking the refrigerator door with a screwdriver. That hinge hasn't done anything to you, she said. It knows what it did. Paige set down 2 containers of soup from Dolly's. Cal called me. Why? He was worried. He has my number. He thought you'd yell. He was right. Paige inspected the dead refrigerator. How much? $900 to repair. More to replace. I can lend it to you. No, I'm not Dad. I didn't say you were. You didn't have to. Rowan put the screwdriver down. The cottage needs work. You said the back windows leak. I can afford windows in a refrigerator. Good for you. That's not an insult to you. It becomes one when you say it here. Paige's patience thinned. Why is taking money from a credit card company acceptable, but taking it from me is humiliation? The credit card company doesn't come to Thanksgiving, neither do you, usually. They looked at each other. Paige opened one soup container. That was mean. It was accurate. It can be both. Rowan sat at the counter. The soup was chicken and rice, the broth cloudy with pepper. She had not eaten since the test egg the morning before. Paige pushed a spoon toward her. Think about the loan. I already did, for 3 seconds. I'm fast. You're impossible. Dad says I'm independent. Dad says a lot of things when he's scared, and you translate all of them. Paige ate her soup standing. I'm offering because I believe this can work. That makes it worse. How? If it fails, I don't just lose my place. I lose your money and whatever this is between us. Paige stopped with the spoon halfway to her mouth. Rowan had not meant to name the fragile thing they were building. Once named, it seemed more breakable. Paige lowered the spoon. It wouldn't change this? You don't know that. No, she said. I guess I don't. She took the refusal without sneaking cash beneath a saucer. That was its own kind of help. Wyatt came at noon, although no lunch order had gone out. Rowan was cleaning the coolers. No food, she said. Not hungry. You come to restaurants for the atmosphere? He placed a folded piece of paper on the counter. It was a handwritten advertisement for a used 2-door commercial refrigerator at a diner in Cambridge. $800, buyer responsible for removal. Bee called around, he said. Of course she did. Unit 7 years old, diner's replacing it with a larger one. I don't have $800. I do. Rowan looked up. He did not shift or soften the offer. You can pay me back? No. Didn't say free. I said no. You need a refrigerator? I know what I need. Then why are you angry at me? Because everybody keeps deciding the thing I need most is to owe them. He rested his hands on the counter. They were scarred across the knuckles, nails cut close for line work. You owe Cal, B, the electric company, water company, trash company, credit card. Thank you for the financial portrait. You're already doing it. Doing what? Owing people. You only hate it when the people care whether you sleep. Rowan folded the advertisement and pushed it back. I'm not taking your savings. You didn't ask what they're for. Are they for buying refrigerators for women you've known 6 weeks? No. Then keep them. His face closed in a way she had not seen before. Not anger. Withdrawal. You think money buys the right to tell you what to do, he said. In my experience, I haven't told you what to do. You told me to take your money, I offered, and I said no. He picked up the advertisement. Wyatt. He waited. I'm not saying I don't appreciate it. Sounds exactly like that. He left. Rowan opened the soup Paige had brought for him and ate that too. Bee called the diner owner from the cafe phone that afternoon. I said no to borrowing money, Rowan told her. I didn't ask. You're calling about a refrigerator I can't buy. I'm asking whether 800 is a real number or a lonely number. What does that mean? All used equipment prices are either real or waiting for company. The diner owner came down to 600 and agreed to take 300 immediately, the rest within 30 days, because B had supplied his rolls for 11 years and threatened to tell people he overcharged a grieving woman. I did not authorize the grieving part, Rowan said when B hung up. You inherited a dead cafe after a funeral. It's efficient. I have $214, then earn $86. The next 2 mornings, Rowan served coffee, toast, and eggs bought in 6-count cartons immediately before opening. She accepted every prepaid lunch order she could produce safely from B's walk-in. Paige worked the counter. Ruth took a tray to the veteran's home. Curtis persuaded the bridge crew to order 12 sandwiches for Friday. Wyatt did not come Thursday. He did not come Friday either, though his tug order remained. Rowan prepared it, and B delivered it without comment. By Friday afternoon, the cash total was $317. Rowan paid the diner owner $300, then realized the refrigerator weighed nearly 400 pounds. Cal stood at the curb beside it in Cambridge, directing the loading as if docking the ferry. You're not lifting, Rowan told him. I've been promoted to supervision. B had borrowed a delivery truck. Paige brought furniture straps. Leon arrived with a dolly that had one unreliable wheel. Marcy brought a different dolly because she was married to Leon and planned accordingly. Wyatt arrived last. Rowan stood beside the open truck. Who called you? Cal? Of course. He looked at the refrigerator. You bought it, half of it. The other half belongs to a man named Gary until next month. Wyatt nodded once. I was awful, Rowan said. You were tired. I'm often tired. I can't make it everybody else's medical condition. He glanced at Cal, who was explaining basic leverage to 3 adults who had not asked. I shouldn't have offered money, Wyatt said. You were trying to help. Still shouldn't have. Rowan waited, but he did not add a lesson. I could use help moving it, she said. That was harder to say than sorry. Wyatt took off his coat and placed it in the truck cab. All right. The refrigerator nearly crushed Leon's unreliable dolly, scraped paint from the cafe's back door, and lodged in the kitchen entrance until Paige removed the metal kick plate. Cal supervised with maddening satisfaction. Wyatt and Bea did most of the heavy lifting. Rowan pushed where told, and did not pretend that pushing was the same as carrying. When the unit finally stood against the wall, everyone watched Rowan plug it in. The compressor started with a smooth, deep hum. Cold air moved across her hand. Leon opened the empty refrigerator. Nothing to eat? Marcy dragged him toward the door. Rowan paid everyone in coffee and grilled cheese made with the rescued cheddar. Cal accepted his cup while seated. Bea added the bread to Rowan's account. Paige ate standing behind the counter in a dirty cream-colored blouse. Wyatt remained after the others left. Rowan wiped fingerprints from the refrigerator doors. You don't have to stay, I know. She looked at him. I'm trying to learn the difference between help and ownership. How's it going? I bought half a refrigerator. Strong start. He reached past her and peeled the manufacturer's sticker from the upper door. His shoulder brushed hers. Neither moved away immediately. The refrigerator hummed behind them, ordinary and dependable. Rowan rested her forehead against the cool metal. Wyatt stood beside her without asking what she needed next. The refrigerator kept humming. Rowan listened to it through cleanup, through the click of the front lock, and through Wyatt carrying the last cardboard boxes to the new trash bin. When he came back, she was still standing in the kitchen with one palm against the metal door. You can go, she said. You said that? I'm giving you a second opportunity. Appreciate it. He took the broom from where it leaned beside her and began sweeping the dining room. Rowan followed him. That is help. Looks like dirt. I'm identifying it so I don't accuse you of trying to own the floor. Floor's not worth the trouble. You haven't seen the waterfront view. He swept beneath the corner table. Mostly mud. You have a poor sense of romance. Wyatt looked up. The words stayed in the air longer than Rowan had intended. He set the broom against the counter. She could see the pale line where his coat collar had protected his neck from the sun, the tiredness beneath his eyes, and a small smear of grease near his jaw from the refrigerator dolly. Then the front door rattled. Leon pressed his face to the glass. I left my keys, he called. Wyatt stepped back. Rowan closed her eyes. I'm going to kill him. Marcy might save you the work. The refrigerator earned its place over the next 3 weeks. Rowan ordered eggs by the case and bacon 10 pounds at a time. She added cheese to the sandwiches, then charged for it after Leon treated free cheese as a constitutional protection. Bay supplied rolls on a regular order instead of whatever had survived the previous day. A crate near the register held lunch slips, each marked with a customer's name, pickup time, and whether Ruth considered the eggs edible or cowardly. The system remained held together by handwriting, habit, and people shouting corrections. At 4:50, Cal checked the propane and started the percolator. Rowan had objected until he pointed out that she was using the 10 minutes to shower in the tiny washroom she had made barely functional. At 5, Marcy took the stool nearest the door and called out names when orders were ready. Leon tried once and gave Curtis 3 sandwiches belonging to the veteran's home. At 5:25, Wyatt arrived. At 6:10, he left. At 6:40, Bea loaded the lunchboxes into her van. Rowan paid her $20 a week for delivery, then increased it to $25 after learning what fuel cost. Paige worked Friday mornings and one Wednesday when Rowan's prepaid phone rang without stopping. She created a simple order sheet on her laptop, printed 50 copies at the library, and did not call it marketing. Ruth monitored Rowan's eating with the intensity of federal surveillance. You had breakfast? She asked one morning. Yes. What? An egg. When? Yesterday. Ruth pointed at the griddle. Sit, I'm working. So am I, apparently. Wyatt cracked 2 eggs. I can cook my own food, Rowan said. He glanced toward the crowded room. When? She sat. The money improved without becoming generous. Rowan paid the remaining $300 on the refrigerator 2 days before the deadline. She paid B's bread account every Monday and Cal's final $9 in cash because he had begun drinking enough coffee to create a new debt in the opposite direction. The roof envelope grew slowly beneath the register. When rain came, the mixing bowl still sat beneath the leak. The first time the cafe took in $1,000 during 1 week, Rowan stared at the total until Paige reached over and turned the page. "That isn't profit," Paige said. "I know." "Say it. I hate you. Say the accounting thing. Revenue isn't profit. Good." After food, delivery, propane, water, trash, phone service, and the refrigerator payment, $136 remained. Rowan paid herself $50. She carried the bill to a thrift store and bought a mattress topper for the cot, 2 sweaters, and a pair of waterproof kitchen shoes. The shoes squeaked on the vinyl floor for 3 days. Leon called them her success shoes. Mention them again, and coffee goes to $3. Abuse of power. No tabs, no arguments, no comments on footwear. She added the third rule to the menu. The crossing became busy enough that strangers began arriving before the morning crew. Cal's stool was occupied one Tuesday by a man hauling oysters north. Cal stopped beside him. "That's my seat." The man looked at the otherwise open counter. "There's 6 more. That's mine." Rowan expected Cal to sulk or the stranger to argue. Instead, Ruth slid one stool sideways, Marcy moved her purse, and the old crew compressed itself without discussion. Cal sat between Ruth and the oyster hauler. By the end of breakfast, he knew the man's name, truck route, and opinion of diesel prices. Rowan watched from the griddle. The cafe was changing around them, becoming less private and more useful. The morning crew had not rescued the place, so they could keep it to themselves. They had simply held its shape until someone opened the door. Travis's workers began coming in. Dennis arrived first, sitting near the entrance as if prepared to leave if Rowan objected. He ordered coffee and toast, paid exact change, and carried an egg sandwich back to the yard. The next day he brought 2 mechanics. By Friday, Rowan was wrapping 6 shop orders. Travis did not come with them. "He know you're here?" Rowan asked Dennis. Dennis added hot sauce to his eggs. "We're adults. That wasn't my question. He knows where breakfast comes from. And he says your coffee's overpriced. He hasn't bought any." Dennis took a careful drink. "Might have tried mine." The idea of Travis drinking from an employee's paper cup in the service bay made Rowan absurdly sad. She added a 7th shop sandwich to the next order and wrote Travis across the paper. Dennis returned it unopened. "He say why?" "Said he didn't order." Rowan threw it away after the eggs cooled past saving. Paige found the wrapper in the trash and said nothing. Her silence had changed. It no longer protected the person with the most power in the room. Sometimes it simply left Rowan space to be hurt without being observed too closely. Dean stayed away. He did not call the cafe phone. He did not return to Dolly's invitation. Paige reported nothing except that he was eating and had finally shaved. Rowan did not ask where he kept Claire's steel urn. She thought about it whenever the enamel percolator took too long. Wyatt began staying after lunch delivery on days the tug docked early. He repaired nothing unless Rowan asked. Sometimes he sat at the counter while she totaled expenses. Sometimes he carried grease to the collection drum. Once, after watching her struggle to stack 20 bakery boxes, he said, "Those go flat first." "I know. You're folding them. I'm improving them." He took the boxes gently from her and demonstrated. "You enjoy being right too much," she said. "Don't get many chances." They ate late lunches together from whatever had gone wrong, enough not to sell. Split yolks, torn rolls. Bacon cooked on the dark edge of acceptable. Rowan learned that Wyatt rented a small house near the commercial docks and owned exactly 1 bath towel, which he defended as efficient. His mother lived in Tennessee with a man Wyatt described only as her 3rd good idea. His father was alive in Virginia and had not spoken to him in 4 years. "What happened?" Rowan asked. Wyatt dipped a torn roll into tomato soup. "He wanted me to join his towing company." "You didn't?" "I did. 3 years. And?" "He wanted a son. Hired an employee." Rowan waited. "That's the story," he said. "No dramatic last conversation?" "Lots of dramatic conversations. None worth repeating." "Do you miss him?" Parts." The answer echoed what he had said about the ferry. Rowan stirred her soup. "My father thinks I use suffering to feel necessary." Do you? She looked up sharply. Wyatt did not retreat. He also did not look pleased with himself. Sometimes, she said, doesn't mean he gets to make you suffer. She put down her spoon. That was dangerously close to wisdom. Probably the soup. The kiss happened beside the refrigerator, with the cafe phone ringing. Rowan had been reaching past Wyatt for the order pad. He turned at the same time, and they ended up close enough that pretending otherwise would have required choreography. She looked at his mouth. He noticed. Phone, he said. It'll ring again. That sounded optimistic. She kissed him before he could say anything quieter. His hand settled at her waist, careful at first, then certain when she moved closer. He tasted like coffee and tomato soup. The refrigerator hummed behind her back, and somewhere outside, a gull screamed as though filing an objection. The phone stopped. Wyatt drew away just enough to look at her. Was that help? He asked. Rowan's forehead rested against his. Don't ruin it. The phone rang again. She answered breathless. Crossing Cafe. Leon said, Did I interrupt something? You are banned from technology. I need 4 breakfasts tomorrow. You need boundaries. Marcy's voice sounded in the background. I told you to call B. Rowan hung up. Wyatt was smiling openly now. It changed his whole face and made her suspicious of how rarely he used it. This doesn't mean you can buy appliances, she said. Understood. Or fix things I didn't ask you to fix. All right, and I'm not moving into a house with 1 towel. His smile faded. That seems judgmental. The coastal storm appeared on Ruth's phone as a swirl of orange and red moving north. At first it was expected to stay offshore. Then it slowed, strengthened, and began pushing water ahead of it into the bay. The morning crew discussed the forecast with the authority of people who had survived weather, and therefore believed all future weather should consult them. Nor'easter, Cal said. News calls it a coastal cyclone, Leon replied. News needs advertising. Marcy enlarged the map. Bellwether's under a flood watch. Bellwether floods when somebody drains a bathtub, B said. Rowan looked through the windows. The tide had already reached the lowest posts of the old ferry ramp, though high tide was 2 hours away. Wind pressed the marsh grass flat toward Travis's yard. She walked the property after closing. The cafe stood on pilings and a concrete rise above the landing, built high because ferry captains had once waited out storms inside it. The parking lot sloped toward the old loading lanes. Water could cross the lower gravel without reaching the building. Travis's service road was another matter. It ran behind the chain-link fence, dipped beside a clogged culvert, and climbed toward his boat sheds. 3 holes rested on stands along the low section. 2 customers' trucks were parked near the back sheds. Rowan found him directing Dennis to move an outboard engine indoors. That road's going under, she said. Travis glanced at the sky. Watch was issued an hour ago. The tide's already high. It's wind-driven. Yes, wind keeps driving. He handed Dennis a coil of cable. We have until tomorrow afternoon. Cal says the surge could arrive before the rain. Cal isn't a meteorologist. He spent 34 years watching this water, and now he drinks coffee for a living. Rowan looked toward the low road. Move the trucks tonight. They're not mine. Call the owners. I know how to run my yard. You knew how to turn off water. His expression cooled, and you knew how to turn it back on. The wind lifted a sheet of loose plastic and snapped it against the fence. Travis looked toward the cafe. You staying there? Yes, you shouldn't. It's higher than the cottage. It's exposed. So are the sheds. They're built for it. So is the landing. He shook his head. You always think being warned is the same as being challenged. And you think warning people makes whatever happens next their fault. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Travis said, If the county upgrades the watch, leave. You first. Rowan went back to the cafe and moved the roof envelope out from beneath the register. She bought batteries, bottled water, extra propane, heavy garbage bags, and enough soup, bread, coffee, eggs, and bacon to cover the orders already placed. She did not buy enough for a disaster. She was still paying for a roof that leaked during ordinary rain. By dusk, the bay had climbed over the end of the abandoned loading lane. The first hard drop struck the crossing's windows sideways. Across the fence, Travis's customer trucks remained beside the sheds. Rowan called Travis's phone. He declined the call. She watched him through the rain as he and Dennis rolled an engine stand toward the nearest shed. The other workers were stretching tarps over 2 unfinished boats. Travis glanced once toward the cafe, saw Rowan holding the phone, and turned away. She typed, "Move the trucks." The message showed, "Delivered." No answer came. By 10, the weather service had upgraded the flood watch to a warning. Rowan's prepaid phone chirped every 15 minutes with alerts that sounded far too cheerful for the words beneath them. Paige called from June's cottage. "Dad says you need to leave. Dad owns a phone. He knows you won't answer. I answered when he wanted breakfast." Rowan: "I'm fine. The water's below the parking lot. The wind is supposed to change after midnight. I know. Come here. The cottage is lower. Then go to Dad's." "No." Paige was quiet. "This is not the moment to prove something. I have food in the refrigerator and no generator. If the power goes, I have to deal with it. You don't stay in a flood for bacon. That sounds like something Leon would put on a shirt. I'm serious. So am I. The cafe's elevated. I have bottled water, propane, lamps, and a clear route to the upper road. If the water reaches the ticket booth, I leave. The ticket booth is practically in the bay, the bottom step of the ticket booth. That distinction did not help. A gust struck the cafe hard enough to rattle the roof patch. "Was that wind?" Paige asked. "No, Leon wants toast. Call me every hour. My phone doesn't have enough minutes for your anxiety." "I'll call you then." Rowan hung up and moved the legal pad, receipts, and cash box into a plastic storage bin. She carried the bin to the highest pantry shelf beside Claire's folded white aprons. She was wearing the red one again, though she had no customers and no reason to cook. At 11:30, headlights turned into the lot. Wyatt came through the door carrying a duffel bag, a coil of rope, and enough rain on his coat to mop the dining room. "You're not open," he said. "You're observant. Sign says closed. You read too. Tug tied up early." "Good." He set the duffel on the counter. "You staying?" "Until the water reaches the ticket booth step." "Which step?" "The bottom." He looked outside. "Bad marker. That's what Paige said. Smart woman. You should leave before I rethink kissing you." He took off his coat. "Need to board the west windows." "I don't have plywood. Old ticket booth does. That plywood is part of the ticket booth, not all of it." They worked in rain that stung exposed skin. Wyatt pried 2 sheets from the booth's interior partition, while Rowan held a flashlight and offered instructions he ignored. They covered the cafe's largest west-facing window, driving screws into the wooden frame. Rowan's hair whipped into her mouth. Cal will be offended he missed this. Cal knows. "You called him?" "He called me." "Does nobody communicate directly with the person involved?" "You'd say no. I might." "No." The second sheet was too narrow. Wyatt overlapped it with a shutter they found beneath the loading ramp. Rowan braced it while he drove screws. A pickup crawled into the lot. Cal rolled down his window. "You're doing that wrong," Rowan shouted over the wind. "Go home. Brought rope. We have rope. Mine's better." Ruth sat in the passenger seat wearing street clothes and a hooded raincoat. She got out, carrying a plastic medical kit. "Why are you here?" Rowan asked. "Cal shouldn't drive in this." "Then why did you let him? Have you met him?" Cal climbed out. Wind changed. "We know," Wyatt said. "Surge will push straight up the landing. We know." Cal studied the boarded windows, then pointed to the roofline. "Vent caps loose." Rowan moved between him and the ladder, lashed to his truck. "No. I wasn't going up." "Good. Wyatt can." "Also no." Wyatt looked at her. "I can. Everybody stays on the ground." Cal's mouth tightened. Then he walked to the sheltered side of the building and began tying a line around the vent support, accessible from the loading dock rail. He directed Wyatt through securing it without once leaving the pavement. Ruth entered the cafe and inspected Rowan's supplies. "You bought enough coffee for the National Guard," she said. "It was for the week. Veterans Home called in extra staff. They're sleeping there tonight. Do they need food? They have a kitchen?" "That wasn't my question." Ruth looked at her. "They'll manage." "Do they need food? Night shift could use 12 breakfasts by 6, but nobody expects you to." Rowan pulled out the order pad. "Hard eggs," Ruth said. "All of them." Bea arrived just after 1 in the morning, her bakery van rocking in the gusts. She carried 4 trays of rolls inside. "I'm shutting down after this batch," she said. "Ovens are off. Gas is off. My brother's coming to board the loading door. You shouldn't have driven here. I came before the lower road floods. You could have stayed at the bakery. Bakery's near the creek. You can stay here." That was the plan. Bea dropped her van keys in the tip jar and helped Ruth move chairs away from the windows. At 2, Paige arrived with blankets, batteries, and a battery-powered radio. Rowan opened the door and stared at her. "We had a phone conversation." "Yes, I found it unsatisfying." "What about the cottage?" "Storm shutters are closed. Dad checked them." "He knows you're here?" "I'm 32. That answer has become suspicious." Paige removed her soaked coat. "He thinks I'm at my house. You are at your house. June's house. Your house." Paige looked toward the water. "We'll fight about that when the weather improves." 5 adults occupied the cafe, yet the room felt smaller with each gust. Cal and Wyatt checked the doors. Ruth arranged flashlights. Bee sliced bread because stillness offended her. Paige used her laptop until the internet disappeared. Rowan cooked the veteran's home order at 4:30. The power flickered twice while eggs hardened on the griddle. Each time, everyone looked toward the refrigerator. The lights recovered. At 5:10, headlights crossed the boarded windows. Leon and Marcy came through the door, wearing matching yellow rain slickers. Rowan stared at them. "No." Marcy removed her hood. "We brought coffee." "I have coffee?" Then we brought Leon. Even worse. Leon carried a thermos and a plastic container. "Sausage." "You drove here in a flood warning for sausage? Freezer might lose power." Marcy looked around. "Where do you need us?" The morning crew had come. Not for breakfast this time. They moved the veteran's home order into Bee's van, but the road toward the facility was already blocked by standing water. Ruth called a co-worker, arranged a meeting point on higher ground, and went with Bee to deliver the boxes. Leon filled sandbags from a pile left beside the old ticket booth years earlier. Marcy wrote everyone's phone numbers on the legal pad in case service failed. Paige wrapped clean towels around the window frames where rain found its way inside. At 6:20, the power went out. The lights died. The refrigerator stopped humming. The cafe's emergency lamps threw yellow circles across the dining room. Nobody applauded this time. Rowan checked the food thermometer, although she knew cold would hold for several hours if they kept the refrigerator closed. "Propane still works," Cal said. "Water?" Rowan tried the sink. The faucet ran. "For now." The radio reported trees down north of Bellwether and water across the approach to the bridge. The forecast expected the worst surge near the afternoon high tide. The parking lot disappeared inch by inch beneath wind-blown water. The old loading lanes vanished first. Waves struck the rusted ferry arms, sending spray over the rail. At the bottom step of the ticket booth, water swirled around Wyatt's boots. He came inside. Time to revise the marker. The upper road still clear. Barely. Rowan looked toward Travis's yard. The service road had flooded. Water reached the wheel hubs of the 2 customer trucks. One boat had shifted on its stands, its bow angled toward the fence. Travis and his workers were inside the rear shed, trapped between the rising lower road and the water crossing the yard entrance. "Call him," Rowan said. Paige already was. No answer. Rowan tried. This time Travis picked up. "What?" he shouted over the storm. "Come to the cafe. We're moving equipment. You're standing in water. It's ankle deep. It's at the truck hubs. That's the low spot. The whole yard is the low spot. We can get out through the north gate." Rowan could barely see the north gate. A fallen pine lay across the lane beyond it. "No, you can't," Travis swore. "How many people?" 5 here. 2 customers came for their trucks. 7? "Yes. Get everybody to the fence. Wyatt will meet you. We're not abandoning the shed." A metallic crash sounded through the phone. Rowan saw the shifted boat slide another foot, one stand folding beneath it. "Travis," he did not answer. "Travis, the shed is not worth one of Dennis's legs." Another pause. "We're coming," he said. Wyatt tied a rope from the cafe loading rail to the fence post nearest the high side of Travis's yard. Cal checked each knot from the pavement. Rowan stood at the kitchen window holding a flashlight, though daylight had arrived without brightness. The first person appeared through the rain, gripping the rope. Dennis. Then one of the boat owners, soaked to the waist. The others followed, moving slowly against water and wind. Travis came last. When they reached the cafe porch, Rowan counted 7 twice. Inside, the men dripped onto the floor. One had cut his palm. Ruth cleaned it, while he insisted it was nothing. Marcy gave out towels. Paige poured coffee from the percolator Cal had moved to the propane burner before the power failed. Travis stood near the door, staring back at his yard. The shifted boat struck the fence. "You warned me," he said. Rowan could have answered in a dozen ways. Every one of them had kept her warm on angry nights. Instead, she handed him a towel. "You're blocking the door." He gave a short, broken laugh and wiped rain from his face. More headlights appeared on the upper road. A utility truck stopped at the edge of the flooded lot. 3 workers came in, unable to reach a downed line near the bridge. Behind them arrived 2 seafood packers whose car had stalled in water. Then a couple from the marina, both shivering after securing their vessel too late. The cafe filled with wet coats, muddy boots, fear, and the smell of propane coffee. Rowan counted 23 people. The refrigerator was warming. The supplies inside were meant to carry the cafe through the week. If she cooked them now, she would have nothing to sell when the storm passed. No breakfast income, no lunch deliveries, no money for the roof or the next food order. A utility worker asked, "Any chance you've got something hot?" Rowan looked at the griddle, then at Travis's workers, Ruth, Cal, Bea, Leon, and Marcy, Paige, and Wyatt. People who had come for coffee when the cafe was dark. People who had carried a refrigerator through a narrow door. People who had warned her, angered her, owed her, fed her, and refused to leave her alone. She opened the refrigerator. "Eggs first," she said, "then soup. Everybody who can hold a knife, wash your hands." The kitchen became a line. Bea sliced bread, Paige cracked eggs. Leon opened tomato soup until Rowan moved him to coffee after he splashed his shirt. Cal organized orders from the counter, his shaking hand steady enough when laid flat against the pad. Wyatt worked the griddle beside Rowan. Travis stood outside the kitchen, uncertain. Rowan pointed to the sink. Dishes. He took off his wet jacket and rolled up his sleeves. Wind hammered the building. Water climbed the porch steps. The roof began leaking in 3 new places. At the height of the rain, someone knocked on the front door. Dean stood outside with a battered steel coffee urn held against his chest. Wyatt opened the door against the wind and pulled Dean inside by one arm. Water streamed from Dean's jacket. The steel urn was wrapped in a black garbage bag, held high against his chest like something rescued from a fire. Rowan stared at it. "You took that," she said. "Yes, from here, yes." Dean set the urn on the counter and peeled away the plastic. It was larger than Rowan remembered, wide-bellied and dented near the spigot. A crooked blue line circled its base, painted by Claire with what looked like boat enamel. "You came through the upper road?" Travis asked. "Parked by the church and walked. The road's washing out." "I noticed." Paige shoved a towel into his hands. "You could have called. Phones are out near the cottage." Rowan looked at the urn. "Why bring this?" Dean removed the lid. Inside were the long stem and metal basket of an old stovetop percolator, packed separately so they would not rattle. "Because it works on gas," he said. "And because yours makes 12 cups." Cal leaned over the counter. 48 if you don't fill above the blue line. Dean looked at him. 42. Claire painted the line too high. She liked strong coffee. She liked making too much coffee. The 2 men held each other's gaze, decades of unspoken mornings passing between them. Then Cal pointed toward the stove. "Gas line's good." Dean carried the urn into the kitchen. Rowan followed. "You don't get to walk in here and act like nothing happened. I'm not. You brought an appliance. You have 20 people in 1 coffee pot. 23. Then it's a useful appliance." A gust struck the boarded window. Everyone flinched except Dean, who was pouring bottled water into the urn with the focus of a man defusing something. "Talk later," he said. "You always say later." He stopped pouring. Behind them, Travis dropped a plate into the sink. It did not break, but the clatter brought every nearby conversation to a halt. Dean lowered the water jug. "Then talk while we work." Rowan had no idea how to begin, with 23 people watching and eggs burning on the griddle. She turned back to the stove. "Coffee is 16 scoops." Dean looked at Claire's writing beside the pantry. "For Cal," he said. "For everybody today." He measured 16. The urn took nearly 40 minutes to percolate. While it heated, the storm pressed harder against the cafe. Rain found new paths through the roof. Mixing bowls, stock pots, and a plastic pickle bucket appeared beneath the leaks. Water crept over the second porch step, carrying marsh grass, a single work glove, and one of Travis's empty oil drums. The boat that had shifted against his fence broke free of its remaining stands. It rolled onto one side with a slow, terrible scrape Rowan felt through the floor. Travis watched from the window. "Customers?" Dean asked. "Mine," Travis said. Nobody told him that was better. The utility crew ate first because they were attempting to reach a downed line as soon as the water dropped. Rowan handed them egg sandwiches and coffee. One worker reached for his wallet. "No," she said. "We can pay." "You can pay when I'm open." He looked around at the crowded cafe. "What do you call this?" Rowan followed his gaze. Ruth was bandaging the seafood packer's blistered feet. Marcy had organized wet coats by owner. Leon poured coffee while warning everyone that he had received no formal training. Cal sat at the register, writing down how much food left the kitchen, even though nobody was being charged. Paige worked beside Bee, slicing bread and laughing every time the wind blew rain through the gap beside the window. Travis washed dishes. Dean stood over the steel urn. "Tuesday," Rowan said. "This is Tuesday." The utility worker tucked his wallet away. By afternoon high tide, the water reached the top porch step. Wyatt tied another line between the loading rail and a steel post in case anyone needed to leave. Cal stayed on the sheltered side of the window and directed every knot. He did not ask for a ladder. Rowan did not praise him for that. A corner of the west shutter pulled loose with a crack. Wyatt started toward it. "No outside," Rowan said. "If that board goes, we brace it inside." Travis left the sink and helped him carry a table to the window. They wedged it upright beneath the frame, then drove screws through the tabletop into the wooden trim. "That was June's table," Paige said. "She hated that table," Rowan replied. "She hated the chairs. She hated both. Said they made the room look like a dentist's office." Dean, still filling cups, said, "Your mother picked them." "That explains why June hated them," Cal called. A laugh went through the room, not because it was especially funny, but because the windows were bending and people needed permission to breathe. At 4, the refrigerator thermometer reached 41 degrees. Rowan opened the doors, everything out. They cooked the bacon first, all of it. The griddle filled edge to edge, grease snapping against Rowan's wrists. Paige scrambled eggs in batches. Bee turned the rescued cheese and bread into sandwiches. Leon opened the remaining tomato soup under strict supervision. The smell changed the room. Wet wool and marsh water gave way to bacon, toast, coffee, and hot tomatoes. People who had insisted they were not hungry ate standing, sitting on counters, or leaning against walls. Travis carried a plate to Dennis without being asked. Ruth fell asleep for 19 minutes in the back booth, woke, and immediately told Rowan to sit down. "No, you've been at that griddle 8 hours, so has Wyatt." Wyatt ate. Wyatt slid half a sandwich onto Rowan's plate. "Eat. I'm beginning to dislike this conspiracy." "Chew," Ruth said. Rowan ate while working. The surge held through dusk. No one new arrived after the upper road closed completely. The cafe became an island without the ferry that had once made islands temporary. Bee found candles in a storage cabinet. Marcy dealt cards at one table. The utility workers slept in shifts before attempting the road. Paige gave her blankets to the seafood packers and wore an old ferry jacket Cal found in the ticket booth. Travis sat near the front window, watching his boatyard disappear and reappear with sheets of rain. Dean carried a plate to him. Travis accepted it. "I should have moved the trucks," he said. "Yes?" "I thought she wanted to be right." Dean looked toward Rowan. "Sometimes she does." Travis's mouth almost moved. "So do you," Dean added. "That sounds hereditary. It's a family illness." They ate without speaking further. Near midnight, the tide began to fall. The water withdrew from the top step, leaving a dark line of debris against the porch. The wind remained fierce, but its pressure shifted. The building stopped groaning with every gust. The refrigerator was empty, except for mustard, hot sauce, and the rescued hard cheese. Every egg had been cooked. Every strip of bacon was gone. The soup cans stood rinsed and stacked for recycling. Bee's last rolls had become sandwiches. Rowan looked at the bare shelves. "You fed 31 people," Cal said from behind her. "I had food for a week. Had. I also had roof money. You've still got a roof." A stream of rainwater dropped into the pickle bucket with a steady plunk. "Technically," she said. Cal followed her gaze. "Technically's underrated." At 2, the rain weakened enough for people to hear one another without raising their voices. The utility crew left on foot along the rope line to assess the upper road. Travis's customers slept beneath tables. Dennis and the mechanics remained near the door, ready to return to the yard when the water dropped. Paige dozed with her head on folded arms. Wyatt sat on the floor beside the griddle, back against the cabinet. Rowan lowered herself next to him. His shirt was damp at the shoulders. There was dried egg on one sleeve. "You still have one towel?" she asked. "Yes. That's going to be a problem tonight. Not the biggest." She rested her head against his shoulder. Across the kitchen, Dean washed dishes. The sight tightened something in her. He had removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves to the elbows. Claire used to say Dean washed a plate as if preparing it for surgery. He still did. Hot water, soap, rinse, inspect, stack. Rowan stood. Wyatt did not ask where she was going. She carried a pile of cups to the sink. Dean made room beside him. For several minutes, they worked without speaking. He washed, she dried. The steel urn sat on the stove, its blue line visible in the candlelight. "Why did you take it?" Rowan asked. Dean scrubbed a pan that was already clean. June reopened 3 weeks after Claire's funeral. "I remember. I came in the first morning. Heard that thing percolating before I opened the door." He rinsed the pan. "Sounded like every morning I'd spent begging your mother to slow down. So you stole it. I took it. That's stealing when the owner doesn't know." June knew. She saw me carry it out. "What did she say?" "Nothing. That family tradition started early." Dean set the pan in the rack. "I thought if the urn was gone, the cafe would feel different. Did it? I never came back to find out." Rowan dried the pan. "Your mother wasn't here because June forced her," he said. "Claire loved this place. She loved being needed. Sometimes she loved it more than being known." "That sounds like the same thing." "It isn't." Rowan looked toward the dining room. Cal asleep with his cap over his face. Ruth checking the bandage on a stranger's hand. Paige beneath the Ferry jacket. Travis near the window. Wyatt on the kitchen floor. "No," she said. "It isn't." Dean turned off the water. "I called the cafe dead because I needed it to be," he said. "If it was dead, leaving it wasn't abandonment. It was common sense. You didn't only leave the cafe. I know. When June got worse, you left me there too." His mouth tightened. "I told myself you wanted control. I wanted sleep. I know that now. You knew it then. You just liked the other explanation." Dean nodded once. Rowan had imagined apologies from him while driving June to appointments, while packing her duffel bags, while washing dishes without water. In those imagined apologies, he said everything correctly, and she either forgave him beautifully or refused with devastating calm. The real man stood beside her with dishwater on his shirt and no language large enough for the months behind them. "I was cruel to you," he said. "Yes, I'm sorry." Rain tapped the patched roof. Rowan folded the dish towel. "Grief explains why you left. It doesn't excuse punishing me for staying. No. And bringing the urn doesn't fix it. No." She looked at him, but it made coffee. His eyes filled. He glanced away toward the stove. "Yes," he said. It did. At first light, the storm moved north. The upper road reopened enough for the stranded people to leave in small groups. Each one tried to pay. Rowan refused until arguing required more energy than accepting. Bills appeared beneath cups, beside plates, and inside the tip jar with B's van keys. Travis stepped onto the porch. His rear shed had lost part of its roof. One customer truck sat crooked in mud. The boat against the fence lay on its side. Water filled the service bays. The crossing still stood, but shingles covered the parking lot and daylight showed a dark, wet bulge in the kitchen ceiling. Behind Rowan, the refrigerator hummed over empty shelves. Tomorrow's order board was full. She had nothing left to cook. Rowan took the order board down. The movement woke Ruth, who had fallen asleep sitting upright in the back booth. "What are you doing?" "Canceling tomorrow." "You don't have to decide now. I have mustard and cheese. I can make 12 highly disappointing sandwiches." Ruth stood and looked into the refrigerator, as if more food might appear for a medical professional. "We'll call the veterans home," she said. "I'll call everybody. You should sleep. I should empty the buckets before the ceiling comes down." The wet bulge above the kitchen had grown wider. Cal stood beneath it, head tilted. "Don't poke it," Rowan warned. "I wasn't going to." "You have poking energy. Ceiling panel needs draining before it falls." Wyatt brought the pickle bucket. Travis found a screwdriver in Cal's truck and punched a small hole through the sagging tile. Water poured down in a steady stream. Cal directed them from 6 feet away. When the flow slowed, Travis climbed onto a chair and removed the ruined panel. Gray morning showed through a split in the roofing boards. "Needs a tarp now," he said. "Your shed needs a roof." "My shed isn't over a stove." He stepped down and looked at Rowan. Mud had dried to his pants from the knee down. One side of his face was scraped, though she did not remember seeing it happen. "I have marine shrink wrap at the shop," he said. "Enough to cover this section until the roofer comes, if it isn't underwater. Upper shelf? Your workers need to go home. They'll decide that. They've been up all night. So have you." "That's different." Travis gave her a tired, familiar look. "It always is." Dennis and the mechanics returned to the yard with him as soon as the water dropped below their boots. Wyatt went too. Cal remained in the parking lot, shouting instructions nobody needed. Rowan sat on the porch step and called each number on the order board. Curtis answered on the second ring. "Crossing," he said. "You all right?" "The cafe's standing. I can't fill tomorrow's order. You got coffee?" "Yes." "Then we'll take coffee." "You ordered 14 sandwiches. Utility crew picked up another shift. Make it 20 coffees." "I'm not charging sandwich prices for coffee." "Wouldn't dream of it." He hung up before she could reduce anything. The veterans' home canceled food, but requested 2 steel dispensers of coffee for the staff who had remained through the storm. Ruth insisted on paying the regular price. Bellwether Tug moved its lunch order to the following week. B. Calder Bakery discovered the building had kept power and added Rowan's bread to the next oven load. "You haven't paid last week," B said. "I know. Pay Friday." "I might not have it Friday." "Then I'll call Saturday and be unpleasant." "You're unpleasant now." Free sample. People began leaving money, not donations. Payment for coffee, eggs, soup, dry floor space, ruined dish towels, and the breakfast they intended to order later. The utility worker who had tried to pay tucked $50 beneath the empty tomato soup pot. The Marina couple put money in the tip jar. Travis's customer paid for meals for all 7 people from the yard. Rowan found $384 when she emptied the jar onto the counter. It was less than the food she had used and more than she had expected to see again. Dean carried the steel urn to the sink. "Leave it," Rowan said. He stopped. "Here? It belongs here?" He set it down carefully. "The spigot drips to the left," he said. "I noticed. Gasket's in the lid. Cal can supervise somebody fixing it." Cal, outside, raised one finger without turning around. Dean put on his wet jacket. "I'll call." Rowan did not say she would answer. He touched the blue line near the urn's base, then left with Paige to inspect the cottage. The marine wrap went over the kitchen roof before noon. Travis stayed on the ground, passing tools, while Wyatt and Dennis secured it from ladders. Cal sat in a chair in the parking lot and complained about all 3 men's technique. Rowan drove to Linton's Market in a car that still smelled faintly of bacon grease. She bought eggs, milk, butter, bacon, coffee, and enough cheese for the orders she had not canceled. At the register, she put 2 packages of bacon back. The cafe reopened with a limited menu 2 mornings after the storm. At 5:10, the morning crew came through the door. Cal sat at his usual stool. Ruth ordered destroyed eggs. B brought bread and an invoice. Leon objected to the absence of bacon until Marcy offered to take him home. Wyatt arrived at 5:25. Kissed Rowan once behind the open refrigerator door, and ordered toast. "Only toast?" she asked, watching inventory. "Your concern has been noted and rejected." He paid anyway. The utility crews filled every remaining table. They tracked mud across the floor and ordered coffee faster than the steel urn could produce it. Rowan refilled the basket, measured 16 scoops, and stopped at the blue line. The cafe did not recover in a triumphant week. The storm money bought food. It did not replace the roof. The insurance deductible was higher than Rowan's savings, and the permanent repair cost more after contractors became busy across the county. She kept the marine wrap through 3 additional rains, while the roof envelope slowly filled again. Travis's rear shed took 2 months to reopen. The customer boat on its side needed extensive repair. One truck never started again. He did not ask Rowan to forgive him. He began by sending Dennis over with a new grease drum after the old one floated away. Then he arranged for the cafe's trash bin to sit on a raised concrete pad beside his yard, where storm water could not carry it into the bay. He brought Rowan a written copy of the actual shared utility costs from the week before she established her own accounts. "I overestimated the water," he said. "You think?" "It was $38. You asked for $212. My bookkeeper calculated commercial use. Your bookkeeper was trying to scare me." "Yes." "Did you tell her to?" "No." He paused. "I didn't tell her not to." Rowan waited. I thought if the cafe became expensive quickly, you'd sell before you lost too much. And you'd get the landing for the yard. Same sentence. He looked toward the repaired fence. I didn't understand what this was. You understood it had water. I understood land and buildings. I didn't understand why people kept coming. Leon, listening from 3 stools away, said, "Coffee?" Marcy struck his arm. Travis looked down at his hands. When June got worse, I told myself, you were better with her. You've mentioned? I also told myself she wanted you. She wanted all of us. I know. The admission came months after the funeral, without weather or witnesses forcing it from him. I let you do the part that hurt, he said. Then I called you irresponsible because you didn't have anything left afterward. Rowan wiped the counter. Sorry doesn't fix that, he added. No. Is this where you tell me grief explains it? No. You were busy and selfish. Travis let out a breath that might have become a laugh in another conversation. Coffee? She asked. $2? Unless you're drinking Dennis's. He placed $2 down. Paige's cottage remained June's cottage in conversation long after the deed said otherwise. She replaced the leaking back windows and kept the blue tablecloth on the dining table. Every Friday morning, she worked the crossing counter in a clean white apron and shoes she could wash. The first time Dean entered while Paige was working, he paused beside the door. Rowan was in the kitchen. She heard his voice, but did not come out. Coffee? Paige asked him. No. Then you're blocking the door. He laughed once, quietly. He left. The next week, he came back with the urn's replacement gasket. He installed it while Cal supervised from his stool. Rowan charged him for the coffee he drank while working. He called after that. Sometimes she answered. Sometimes she was busy and called back. Their conversation stayed short enough to survive. He apologized without demanding a response. Rowan told him when the roof repair was scheduled, but refused his offer to pay for it. You'll accept a payment plan from a roofer, he said. The roofer doesn't think a check makes him my father again. Dean was silent. Was that cruel? She asked. Yes. Was it true? Yes. She did not take it back. The crossing's new roof went on in February. Rowan paid a deposit, then monthly installments. Cal remained on the ground throughout the work. When the last shingle was secured, he inspected it from the parking lot with binoculars and found 3 things to criticize. The cafe stayed small. It opened at 5 and closed at 9, except for pre-ordered lunches that Bea carried on her return route. Rowan hired weekend help when the numbers allowed it. She stopped sleeping behind the counter after Paige convinced her to rent a room above a bait shop 10 minutes away. The cot remained folded in storage for storms and emergencies. Rowan learned to stop serving before she ran out of herself. She closed Sundays, no matter how dramatically Leon complained. She raised prices when food costs rose. She required deposits on large orders and wrote no tabs in letters large enough that June might have obeyed. Wyatt kept his house and his 1 bath towel, though Rowan bought him a second one and refused to call it a gift. He possessed a cafe key for early deliveries and emergencies. He still knocked before entering if Rowan was inside. He asked before fixing things. She sometimes said yes before the 3rd offer. Cal's tremor worsened. He no longer handled the stove valve. Instead, he started the order pad each morning, printed names and block letters, and told stories about the Ferry to anyone willing to buy coffee while listening. Ruth retired from the veterans' home and continued waking at 4 as if her body had signed a separate contract. Bea's delivery fee increased with fuel. Leon and Marcy kept arguing over the corner table. 1 year after Rowan's first morning in the cafe, headlights began crossing the gravel at 5:10. The crossing sign was freshly painted, although the old sea still leaned slightly. Warm light filled the windows. Coffee percolated in Claire's steel urn, stopping safely beneath the crooked blue line. Ruth entered first, then Cal, Leon, and Marcy, Bea, and Wyatt. Curtis arrived with a bridge order. Dennis carried 6 sandwiches toward the yard. Paige came in wearing her work clothes and took the back booth because Friday was the only morning she allowed herself not to help. Dean's truck arrived last. He sat behind the wheel long enough for Rowan to notice. Then he came to the door. He did not try the handle. He waited outside, uncertain whether the key-shaped history between them entitled him to enter. Rowan unlocked it. Dean stepped inside and looked toward the steel urn, the full tables, and Claire's red apron tied around Rowan's waist. Coffee? She asked. Yes. To stay or go? He looked at the open stool beside Cal. To stay. if that's all right. $2. Dean took 2 folded bills from his wallet and placed them on the counter. No argument, no apology hidden inside the payment, no claim. Rowan poured his coffee. At 5:12, with the morning crew talking around him, her father took his seat.